What's going on, everybody? Welcome to tonight's broadcast of the Risen Champions League, where we have got ourselves a banger matchup, a gamer matchup too, one could say,
True.
between Gravity and ISU Varsity. These two squads coming in, one looking for their very first win here in Risen Champs, the other looking to move themselves up into that upper echelon 2-1 bracket. My name is Gordo. I'm going to be holding down the desk today, and I am joined by your two casters for this evening, Slayer and Bonfire. Slayer, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Gordo. I enjoy the extra stakes that this matchup has for a multitude of reasons, especially for myself, you and myself here, Gordo, because I know the video didn't really get out for a little bit until I was able to throw it up. But if anybody saw our tier list of some of these teams, we're getting two that were kind of in a similar spot. ISU Varsity, the Cyclones, got a little bit of a buff, the collegiate buff, and it seems that their tier listing was a little bit higher than Gravity for that reason, but it's also very fun because Risen Esports' production team's own Dobimon, the guy who holds down the color desk, the color caster desk on Divine League, he coaches this Gravity team. So there's a little bit of extra spice into this matchup, I feel like.
Absolutely, and we'll see how that affects our predictions in just a couple of seconds here. But Bonfire, haven't gotten to talk to you yet. How are you feeling about these two teams coming in on the day? I mean, I'm sure you've gotten a prediction submitted that we will see here pretty shortly, but just vibes on the Champs League so far and how they've been able to do.
Yeah, it should be an exciting matchup. I'm kind of winging it with the prediction. I feel like whenever I overthink it and really try to big brain it, I always get it wrong. So I'm going to go purely off of vibes for today. And, I'll let you know kind of in the minute, in the moment, which should be a lot of fun. But actually, I'm just very excited between these two. If you're a traditional sports fan, there's been a lot of blowouts today. There's currently a blowout happening in the NFL. So I'm hoping that this is not a blowout and we get to see two very good teams battle it out and we get to see the best of both of them. But if the traditional sports leagues mirror anything onto this matchup, we might have an ISU dropping 73 kills or something of that sort.
He's just twisting the knife on himself, man.
We are, yeah. It's a tough day for Bonfire and I as Chicago natives, but that's okay as we have got ourselves some esports to pay attention to instead. Let's throw up some of these predictions for today to see how the casting crew feels about today's matchup, and it is going to be a clean sweep across the board for ISU. Very sorry for that one, Davimon. You've been overruled by the rest of the squad.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to flame us if this goes wrong, Davi. You get all the credit in the world for that. I'm just basically going off a lot of things I already talked about. I love to give the collegiate buff. I'm pretty certain that these players are at least playing in close proximity of each other, obviously attending Iowa State currently. And then the fact that we're on to our third week of champs, and actually these two teams have played a squad already. Both of them have already played Costa Gamer Squad, and ISU came out on top with a sweep of that one, and Gravity were swept by them. So it kind of gives you a bit of an indication how this matchup will go. That's kind of where I'm leaning with my logic. Bonfire's got the vibes held down, though, so I respect it.
Yeah, I didn't even pay attention to anybody else's, and I just went off of what I thought, and so I feel pretty good about my draft. Knowing that you guys are all joining together, we're holding hands in victory or defeat. I gotta say, I think for my reasoning, I think you bring up a ton of great points. Mine just comes down to I think it's so difficult to start 0-2 and somehow turn it around. It's not impossible. I think if you go against another bottom feeding team, sure you can get a win and maybe start a momentum, but it just feels really bad when you get beat up really early in the season. And I think that mentally, I always talk about the mental game. It just might be too difficult to come back from.
Yeah, I can definitely see some of that here. As you said, Slayer, we talked a lot about ISU coming in as that collegiate team. They've got that experience playing together. The GE in the logo is gaming and esports. We did our research on that one. was a little bit of an effort to find out what exactly that logo was standing for. But we are already into the picks and bans down here at the bottom of your screen, and it looks like going to be Akali and Gwen bans coming out from ISU, who are going to be starting off on the blue side. I think that means Gravity is the one who ended up selecting red, since they were on the left side for the matchup coming into the day.
Yeah, I believe the way the matchups work is how they're put on the schedule. The left side team always starts blue. That's just the rule Risen wants to run with for these best of threes. So that's why they are on the blue. But it does bring up a lot of great B1 picks. That's a conversation always around there. I will say both these squads banning away some pretty strong meta picks we've seen so far. Akali is fresh on her buff. We've talked a lot about how Gwen is really viable, especially seeing a lot of jungle pressure and the proverbial king of the jungle, J4, until some more of his nerfs come through in time for Worlds, was the first ban away from Gravity. So a lot of really smart bans. That Rel one also screams out there too, but still a lot of really good B1 options up there if you are ISU Bonfire.
Yeah, I think that they have more than enough options, like you had mentioned, and it'll be interesting to see where they decide to go with it. I think you tend to see a lot of teams go for that first jungle pick. That's really where the strength of these teams in this current meta seems to come from. But with a lot of these bans, you kind of have an opportunity to take a step back and wait and see. Nico, always a strong pick one. I think even with the nerfs and everything that they try to do to gut Nico, those changes with being able to turn into a minion or a ward or anything of that sort just makes her so strong and good for range, good for poke, great at laning, and a fantastic team fighter as well with the ultimate. And so, never going to be mad. I think it is a safe pick one.
Absolutely here. And something to immediately call out, the Gangplank is up and standing. That pick is 100% presence when games that have ISU Varsity in them. Tortwig is a big Gangplank player. He's had it banned against him 3 times, has gotten to lock it in once in a win over Kosa Gamers squad. Let's pay close attention to that pick as we continue to develop through these picks and bans. There's going to be a Seraphine lock-in for Gravity. That's a new pick for them. Wonder if that's going to be coming into a duo in the bot lane, or if it's something that they want to run solo in mid.
It seems like Seraphine started to make that resurgence, but that Orianna lock-in is going to push Seraphine down to the bottom side. I will say, Gordo, you did bring up the point that Gangplank is really big for Tortwig. It can be tougher to pick onto the blue side here because you're very much likely leaving it up for a solid R5 counter. So we'll see if they still commit to that or decide to commit even earlier into this draft. But the way things are going, there's still a lot of really good junglers up if you want to take a crack at, a Maokai potentially. But Ashe also is one of those considered god tier champions currently on our patch here. Just really versatile, really safe in lane, and can scale up very well with a lot of the new itemization choices.
Yeah, and it's that ultimate as well. Still a fantastic pick champion. And that's where Ashe really found their strength in the past. Add on that AD and the ability to buy Triforce. And holy moly, Ashe can just go hyper carry mode. I wanted to talk just briefly about the Seraphine as well. It's going to be a Seraphine Senna in the bot lane. I think we've seen a lot more of it, and that's because Seraphine really fills a lot of different roles. It's the damage, sure, but it's also the healing and the shielding. You get CC as well. One of the best ultimates in the game. Just kind of a Swiss Army knife, and that's why I think we're seeing a lot more Seraphine in these games. And so it'll be interesting to see what Riot wants to do about this champion, because Worlds is coming up, like you had mentioned. Usually they have one patch before Worlds drops just to kind of even everything out. It'll be interesting to see if Seraphine makes its way into the pro scene, or if this is just kind of an amateur look, because I don't know about you guys, but a lot of games that I've been casting, I've seen a ton of Seraphine play.
Yeah, and there's going to be that Gangplank ban we talked about. The other thing about the Senna Seraphine that I do want to touch on real quick is that Senna got buffed on 13-18. It's made her just a little bit higher presence. It's gotten her a little bit of extra oomph in that scaling department. The crit damage going up is a really big deal given how much crit that this champion ends up with. It's not unusual for it either in AD or support to end up with 100% crit chance. When you're critting every auto, that about 9-ish% damage boost becomes a true 9% damage boost across the board. And a little bit on that last embrace as well, getting a little bit of buffs there, going to be able to apply your mist when it explodes in an AoE. That doesn't matter quite as often, but does make some of those trading patterns a little bit easier if you try to cheese it out on a minion or something like that. Now, top laners going banned back and forth. Aatrox and Malphite going to get taken off the board alongside that Gangplank, and Maokai going to be holding down a little bit of the jungle bans as well, Slayer.
Yeah, and I'm looking here towards this R4 pick. I'm expecting a jungler because you really want to make sure to set up Lyric U for a counter pick here if you are Gravity. And Ornn will actually get locked in. So if you're not going to counter pick for top, I'm a fan of going with the Ornn. I mean, it's one of the safer picks, especially when you already have Malphite down off the board. And you've already, kind of pinched Tortwig's pool with that Gangplank. But from what I've seen from him in these last couple games, a lot of his stats, he does still go to a lot of carries-oriented bruisers. Not really going to pick a tank v tank matchup. I still think he's going to want to pick something pretty lane dominant now that the Ornn has been shown from Gravity. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the pick here, as I'm obviously trying to stall, and thank God catch that one in Bonfire. Camille makes me not look like an idiot for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, Camille, a very strong pick like you had talked about. And I'm glad you brought that up as well, as the Wukong's going to be the final pick. There really wasn't a need for a pure tank. You've got a Rakan, you've got a Camille who is tanky enough. And just the way with your team comp is set up, the Nico is going to be in the front line CCing quite often. And the Ashe, I mean, this is a pick comp. They have no need for the front line. And so I love this Camille pick. You layer on that CC, and the true damage is going to help take down that Ornn later. The Wukong, also fantastic for the CC department. This ISU squad wants to get hot, wants to sizzle in the pan early, and they don't want to overcook it, right? They do not want these fights to go too long. If they can kill a Seraphine, an Orianna, a Senna early, they feel like their odds are greatly in favor.
Absolutely, and that's what the team composition is built to do, right? They're going to be looking to isolate one of those targets with a Camille, or they're going to be looking to pick them off with that Ashe, with that Nico, with that Wukong, getting those engages off early and often. The Kindred going to be a big force to support that here, especially when you have this kind of duo support set up with the Seraphine and the Senna, really going to help that Kindred be able to stay safe, and really going to put a lot of onus in Tarim's hands now to be a big damage force on this team, and to be that DPS source coming in from the back line, knowing that the Senna going to be a little bit short in that department, the Seraphine going to be a little bit short in that department. They're going to be plenty powerful scalers, but not necessarily going to be that kind of traditional marksman role.
I like this adaptation a lot from, well, I guess Dabimon potentially here, because, you looked at the draft. In the current meta, you're not going to see Kindred usually get through this far into a draft. You rarely are going to be able to R5 a jungler with his presence like Kindred. So he recognizes that with Kindred getting through that second phase of bans, and you already know that jungle is off the board potentially, Kindred just really wouldn't work at all, I think, in that ISU comp. You really needed somebody with CC, with some authority to bring across in that front line like you're talking about, Bonfire. Because if you go for the Camille, yeah, sure, she has some bruisery qualities, but you can't, then allow a squishy Kindred to go into jungle with that composition. I think this is a really good adaptation to say, hey, we'll slam the Ornn. The Kindred is going to be a pretty big catalyst, because there's a lot of big CC coming through with these other ultimates. You're lining up Call of the Forge God. You've got Command Shockwave. If you get a Dawning Shadow over across with Encore, that's a ton of damage. We need somebody else in the AD department to bring it home. Kindred could be a perfect option.
Yeah, I guess I'll play devil's advocate here, because I'm actually not a huge fan of the Kindred pick, and it just comes down to I'm just not sure how you're going to be able to space out these fights. It feels like the Rakan and the Camille are going to warrant so much respect given over. You've got the Ashe and the Nico as well. The Kindred doesn't really solve a lot of the issues. Sure, it's great damage like you had mentioned, but other than Ornn, what's your engage? You hope for a Command Shockwave, maybe a big Encore based off of nothing. It's just going to be a little nerve-wracking for me. Call of the Forge God is the easy one to talk about, but if that hits only one or two members, or potentially no members, I think it gets really difficult. And like I was talking about earlier, when there is this pick comp, right, with an Ashe, with a Rakan, with a Wukong as well, a Camille, a Nico, it just gets so difficult to play this out. And I think Kindred, while it's great for the damage department, and you do have that Lamb's Respite to keep people alive potentially through the Wombo, I just get nervous that they're just going to be continuously get outspaced in every single fight, and you're just going to have to give up river control way too easily.
Definitely a fair point there. I'm really going to be looking at the side lanes to see what they're going to be able to do over on the side of Gravity to really deal with this Camille coming into the later game. There's not a lot of great side lane pairings up against her. The Lyric Ornn is definitely going to eventually get to a point where can't hang out up against that Camille for too long. The true damage on the Q, it's a Cho'Gath ultimate on just a couple of seconds of cooldown, and it's going to work its way through your health bar no matter how tanky you end up being at the end of the day, especially behind one of those Divine Sunderer builds that are more than likely going to be making an appearance here today. And the rest of the squad, they're not super well equipped to go for that side lane either. You know, you can rely on the Orianna to some degree to space out with the ball, but Hookshot's going to close that gap real quickly, and it's going to get real dangerous for Popcorn real fast.
It's a struggle that you see between two comps a lot, and if you play the hypothetical, the early game and mid game go pretty even. It's gonna be interesting to see which one of these teams is willing to bite first, because you're gonna get that usual dance, right? Of Tortwig is gonna be on a side lane, threatening a tier 2, threatening potential base, but on the other side, if you are, ISU here, you cannot step to a neutral objective up against this gravity comp, especially not without Camille. I mean, you will get if this gravity comp can set up first for Drakes and Barons, they are going to have all the lockdown, because while it's hard for them to engage and set up engage, if they can set up to bring in ISU to them, they're going to wipe, even potentially with Camille. And if without her, yeah, it becomes that dance, right? Is Torchwick going to teleport first or are we going to back first? And those are really game deciding moves, especially with both the comps we have drafted here.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about these late team fights. I think it is important to talk about the early trading, right? Because, we say hypothetically, what if everything goes even? Well, that doesn't tend to happen, especially with these lanes. So we'll keep an eye on the top lane. I think I say it every single time there's an Ornn in game, they don't respect the Ornn damage. And Tortwig on Camille doesn't really bring a ton in the early game. So keep an eye on the top lane, because normally you think, oh, Camille is just going to wipe Ornn's butt. But this game, early on, you might not expect the damage. Yeah, I said it. And in the mid lane, I think Nico actually is a very strong early mid laner as well. Now, Orianna obviously has that good poke damage, but if you can land one Q, it really feels like it just can chunk you down. And Nico's so difficult to go into. And then in the bot lane, just poke central. So keep an eye on these lanes, because I think a lot of this game will be decided in the early stages. If it goes late, or if the game is even late, sure, we have these hypotheticals, but if one team can get a 3,000 gold lead by 15 minutes, that might just decide it.
Absolutely agree. Something you always got to be keeping in mind in League of Legends, regardless of how the team compositions shake out. Getting an early lead wipes out a lot of those rules very quickly. I want to just call it, I'm excited to see XRM0 busting out this Wukong. This champion got buffed back on 13-16. Got a lot of stuff across the board. Got some mana regen, got some mana cost reductions. Just made that clear a little bit more comfortable. And I want to really see how that's affected the monkey here, because he was not far away from being a meta staple ever since those last few nerfs. He was a meta staple in pretty recent memory. Getting a little bit of extra stats back can definitely help to push him over that edge.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with, the added clear speed you're talking about, some of that mana regen and restoration on this Wukong. XRM0 is not trying to get aggressive into Tyrum's jungle here, because Kindred is one of the weakest junglers sometimes in those early exchanges if you're the one aggressing, right? If you're the one from a distance who gets spotted out, and Tyrum can create distance, with the wolf, get a lot of damage over top, is a different story. But Wukong's got a lot of sneaky damage. He has that armor in his passive abilities as well to kind of deal with the Kindred. You always are trying to chase the stacks and stop the stacks when it comes to a Kindred as well. I feel like these junglers might be going at each other early, as we got a grass fight in the top lane. No surprise here.
Yeah, grasp is going to be incredibly important on both of these champions. I'm just excited to, honestly, I'm just really excited to see the trading between these two, because I've seen Ornn trade into a lot of different champions. You see it into a Scion, I've seen it into a Fiora, a Gwen. Just so many champions feel like they just destroy Ornn early, and they always get the sad realization. Been seeing a Camille, and I do feel like if there is a champion that might be able to trade pretty effectively into the Ornn, it could be the Camille, right? With the hook shot, being able to get in and out, kind of avoiding the brittle that Ornn gives. And so I'm really excited to see these two, but keep an eye on those grass procs as well, because not only is it important on the Ornn, it's also fairly important on the Camille as well. We were talking about it earlier, no pure tank on this team, and so while this Camille doesn't want to, turn into a Cho'Gath with 12 stacks, you still need this Camille to be strong enough to hook shot in, avoid just all of the damage being put out, and maybe be able to get Q2 off. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it's really going to be about the wombo for the ISU squad in this game, and they have a lot of resources to be able to get these fights started and to make sure they blow up their targets once it's there. But if that fizzles out, if that doesn't actually get the job done, they do not have a lot of remaining options there, and the clapback from Gravity is going to be intense. Now, that's where that Camille comes in, right? You want to be able to play through those side lanes. You probably want to be able to pick off an isolated target, but play a little bit more of a disengagey style game up until that point. You've got the tools to do it. Just pay close attention to what Gravity can do if they can get themselves that vision control, find themselves some flanks, get fights started in unfair situations for ISU. The ISU comp, as you say there, Bonfire, it needs to start the fights. It needs to start them, and it needs to finish them, probably in one big swing. If it can't manage to make that happen, they're just too squishy. They're going to get blown up. They're going to fall victim to the pretty substantial wombo that's been put together on the Gravity side.
Yeah, a lot of that is going to be on the hands of this Nico. Just
Halo
one of the
Blades.
best. Yeah, one of the best champions to sort of get on top of people when they're not expecting it with that Pop Blossom. Halo Blades is also very interesting. Good spot out there on this Ashe. That's usually signaling pushing for a lot of early trading, wanting to get ahead early in lanes. You know, lethal is always helpful, especially if chains go pretty long, but that's for late game when you're really firing out a lot of those volleys and such. But Halo Blades is a really offensive item, and the supports here makes a ton of sense for fleeting footwork, and you know, potentially could have seen Glacial Augment on that Rakan, but we'll be at the front of a lot of trades throughout the game, Bonfire. So can't hate that pick anytime.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad at all. You know, and to your point about Hail of Blades, I think you know, lethal obviously great for the late game, but Ashe has more than enough auto attack speed. You know, with 2 or 3 items, enough to go around. And so I get it. You know, sacrificing some of that late game. Honestly, it's probably not that much pressure for some early game pressure when Ashe is at their weakest. I don't mind it, especially into this lane where just poke central, so annoying to have to go into. So I don't mind it at all.
Absolutely. Perhaps a little bit of level 1 cheese incoming here. We will find out pretty shortly, as I'm hearing sounds like we have loaded into the game. I'm going to send things over to you two as we get onto the Rift for game number 1 of the night between Gravity and ISU Varsity.
Gordo, we will talk to you very soon. Here is another Sunday has dawned, the end of the week, but just the start. Potential playoff hopefuls, teams looking to save their seasons, and that certainly starts the conversation with Gravity. It is very difficult to start 0-2. 0-3 could be a complete death sentence to a squad season here with Risen Champs.
Yeah, and they've got, you know, a good coach, a good team. This is not a team that is, you know, wants to get stepped all over. And I think that they have a lot to bring to the table. And I think that when you are in this position, right, and you've got all the analysts and all the commentators and everybody saying 2-0 for the other team, I feel like you have to take it personally, as we've got a little bit of an invade here, ISU, just kind of scouting out. But you got to take it personally, Slayer. You know, you got to say, all right, screw you. You know, we are better than this. Let's show everybody what we're all about. And I think that's what good teams do. If they're able to take it personally and they're able to, you know, bet on themselves, I think that's really where the strength of teams can come from. And I really want to see that today from Gravity. I don't want them to concede to what everybody thinks of them. I want them to play their game. And I want to see, honestly, I obviously predicted ISU 2-0, but I want to see Gravity win this. You know, I want to see them make a huge comeback. That'd be fun.
And we'll always really talk about, you gotta start slow though if you are Gravity in this game. Anytime you're sacking a Seraphine Senna kind of combination, you are very much so saying in lane, we're gonna play for poke, we're gonna play for stacks and playing slow here, but they might potentially have a level 1 exchange coming across here. T-Tizzle, he thinks he's all safe and pretty up in that brush, but he doesn't know. They'll have a chance to jump on him on Tellus, but they don't really have the CC to back it up. There's a big knockup from T-Tizzle, and Vision actually has to flash away. Just like we talked about how passive that bot lane from Gravity has to be. They can't even win when they're the aggressor.
Yeah, they got good damage off to start off, but that knockup from Rakan was huge. And, you know, we've talked about this Hail of Blades and how lethal it could be. The Ashe, just too much damage early. You also have to keep in mind, Seraphine and Senna probably combined don't have as much health as Ornn level 1 does. I mean, these are 2 squishy champions. And so they were really hoping for maybe a little bit more damage before they got re-engaged on. Unfortunately, wasn't there. And yeah, you said it best, kind of a unfortunate losing trade for them right there.
Luckily, though, they've got a ton of sustain, especially once these levels start coming over. Senna has those healing capabilities, and of course, the Seraphine does as well. But also, Seraphine, very immobile champion, so losing that flash early has got to be, signaling to XRM0 that bottom lane pathing might be pretty substantially helpful. And we'll see if they can even get a path going there. The push is definitely coming across from Motelis and company, just getting a really good, solid push, trying to cap as many minions as this already struggling to farm Seraphine can get.
Yeah, it's not only that, it's about getting pressure and getting prio for this first Scuttle Crab, which is coming up soon. First Scuttle Crab, fairly important for the Kindred. It's kind of a coin flip on whether the Kindred lands on the correct Scuttle Crab or not, but if you can get a mark early, you're always feeling pretty good. And so if Motels and T-Tizzle are able to get push off and deny the Scuttle Crab from this Kindred, could have some real ramifications for the early game. And yeah, here they are, immediately roaming down. You've got Pico in the mid lane also there, and they're just going to set up Vision. And it is not the correct, it isn't, of course, the correct Scuttle Crab, but you're going to see the Wukong come down as well.
Ooh, there's that Hail of Blades, being able to get another big trade. Tarim has to flash away. Good knockup. Missing from T-Tizzle. Now XRM0, though, jumping onto Kindred. No flash available. It's first blood for Motelis. Ajax having to flash over the wall, but XRM0's going to follow him. One more auto. Does the red buff burn get it? Not through the healing. Ajax barely able to survive, but it's ISU with a huge first blood.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit of an overstep right there from Hotels to start off, but rest of the squad shows up just in time and provides the support needed to ensure that was a positive trade. Tarim just not recognizing that the Rakan could be there so quickly. The knockup had to flash in. Hold on, Popcorn having to flash that as well. Pico falls low, but Popcorn ends up on the losing side of things, and it is just flash central for Gravity. They have a singular flash on the Rift right now, and that is in the top lane, so they're going to have to play fairly safe and respectful for the next couple of minutes.
And what an early game from T-Tizzle, by the way, because all of those flashes burned except, I believe, Ajax's were because T-Tizzle was trying to land a knock up there on 3 separate champions. So doing a really good job just roaming across the map. I especially like him hovering that topside river to make sure that that stack for Kindred, that mark for Kindred is denied and given over to his jungler. Really setting his team up for success.
Yeah, it really feels like it's the T-Tizzle show right now, and I think people kind of sleep on the Rakan. Normally when you think of engaged supports, your mind immediately goes towards the Nautilus, the Rel, even sometimes the Thresh, but Rakan can be so damning. The knockup alongside the charm later in the game is so difficult to deal with for squishy members, and talk about squishy members, they have it.
Oh, knockup, double up. Holy cow, Lyrq having to flash. Maybe not potentially for that last turret shot, but you talked about the Ornn early damage. Don't disrespect it.
Yep. Lyrq gets 6 first, and Torchwick just didn't see that coming. Get away from the wall, young fella. Unfortunate right there for the top laner. Just beautifully played from the Ornn, and you love to see that. I'm always a big fan, Slayer, as I go into my little tangent, of a good Ornn player. I think that it shows a lot more than, sometimes you get top laners really good on the bruisers, on the assassins, on the range sometimes. But a good tank player in the top lane, always a joy to watch.
Especially when you can chain knockups together like that. Beautiful play from Lyrq and sort of establishing which one of these lanes are going to be maybe potentially be the priority for our opposing teams here. And I don't think Gravity were expecting to really, they probably still won't play through topside, but it's more the fact that Lyrq isn't super behind versus this Camille, who's obviously going to have the upper hand. It's a lot of points in this lane, but now might be slipping a bit and leaving Lyrq an opening not only to just stay even, but more importantly, not lose experience, because when you talk about Ornn, big thing is getting those Ornn augmented items to your teammates as soon as possible.
Yeah, for Torchwick, it's basically just continue what you're doing. Hold on in the bot lane. Visit, no flash.
No flash. Flash forward from Motelis does finally come up. The Ignite ticking away. One more volley could potentially do it, but they come up just short. XRM0 can't gap close. Vision limps away once more.
Yeah, Vision just got flash up right there, and so I think Motelis and T-Tizzle thought that they had the read. Oh, Torchwick. Now there's definitely no flash on Popcorn here.
Oh, and there is the lockdown for Torchwick, keeping that Orianna popped up. There's the double pop blossom coming across. The damage not there just yet, though. Popcorn will fall. And Tarim, he doesn't have Lamb's Respite. Maybe overstaying here. No follow-up slows coming just yet. Pico looking for the snare angle. There's the hook shot. They get the stun. Do they have the damage under the turret? They will. Pico grabs a second. ISU are rolling.
Yeah, this is looking really strong right now from ISU. They've got themselves a 1,000 gold lead, but the way that they're moving around the map right now is just so impressive. Constantly, just always everywhere, everything everywhere all at once. Oh, Motelis.
Encore lands the stuns. The arrow will not save him. Vision. That's got to feel good. A revenge skill on the bot side.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of what I was saying with my point before Motelis died right there. They're always everywhere on the map, but it also means that Motelis isn't going to have the support with them, and kind of an overstep right there. I mean, all it takes is one Encore. Motelis has no summoners on an Ashe. Has to be aware, has to be cognizant that if there's any engage at all, you're dead. Even without the Senna, I still feel like that's a dead Ashe, and just not paying respect right now to the bot lane.
Ooh, look at this XRM0. He does have Cyclone. Level 5 Tyram. No Lamser's Respite. Has to flash away. Flash forward to the knockup lane. XRM0 has another one. Lyrq trying to trade back, but he's just an Ornn. He doesn't have enough damage to trade unless he lands these knockups, but not enough to pull over. Another big kill for ISU.
Yeah, right place, right time. XRM0. From 0 to hero right there. 1-0 and 2 on this Wukong. We've talked about T-Tizzle, but honestly, this Wukong has also played a huge role getting this team ahead early. And we kind of highlighted this early, right? If this went towards the late game, both of these teams had conflicting strategies. Either one could come out on top, but if either of these teams gained a lead early, felt like they could get themselves a really big advantage into winning this one. And right now, ISU doing a good job of doing that. The Cyclones playing like their counterpart, like their name, just absolutely sweeping up Gravity.
The whirlwind of early game trades coming across here. They might not stop Tortwig. He does have the Hextech ultimatum available if he wanted to, but a little too close to the turret. Regardless, though, got to give credit over to Tortwig with that early miscue. Maybe a miscue in the mid lane here. Command Shockwave. Pico getting jumped on. Does Popcorn have enough damage? One more auto and it gets it. And it's a shutdown. But bot side now, a big arrow comes across from Motelis. Lands up the charm. IX flashing away. The Ignite gets the heal off with the Q. It should be enough to keep IX alive. But there's no turn coming across for Gravity.
Yeah, not yet. The Kindred is here. Taram's going to get spotted. XRM0. Did he just luck into another kill?
Potentially, Lamser's Respite is available for Taram if he needs it. Drops it. Popcorn is here as well. You have Visit roaming down first. There's an Encore, but it whiffs. Good sidestep from XRM0. They'll pick up that kill. Motelis backs off the Gravity bottom lane. These picks are just all up the Cyclones.
Yeah, XRM0 should maybe buy a lottery ticket, because how many times are you going to blast back yourself into the Dragon's Pit and just find a little bit of a Kindred there? Easy pickings, an appetizer, an hors d'oeuvre. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm actually looking at the vision. Might have had knowledge with that control ward, but I like to believe that it was luck and that XRM0 just has an otherworldly sense of where Taram is across the map. Picks up the kill. Good dodge of the Encore, even with the Lamb's Respite. They take down the jungler. I will say, with all of this trading, with all of these kills, keep an eye on the score, because the gold, it's actually not so bad for Gravity, and that's in the farm department. Popcorn doing a fantastic job on this Orianna in the CS department.
Yeah, so AD carry, mid lane, and top lane all have CS advantages. It's keeping the gold lead close, like you mentioned. But what a rough game for Taram. I mean, you get R5 on this Kindred, 0-4, nowhere close to a stack in sight, and that bodes really poorly because Kindred not going to get any help scaling up without some early stacks, gold coming across at all. Could just be a Lamser's Respite bot.
Yeah, I will say when Kindred's this far behind and provides this little of danger to the enemy team, look at the vision. You keep an eye on the top side. Look how many wards they have on Taram's jungle. And Taram has no clue, and so anytime that Taram wants to go for something in the top side, wants to be somewhere, possibly gank, take some camps, it's always going to get spotted out, and that is going to be difficult. It's going to make it even harder for this Kindred to get anything done.
Ooh, we're going for it again, Popcorn. Command Shockwave. The damage isn't already online yet for this Orianna, though, so maybe just trying to force it back to continue this farm supremacy for Popcorn in the mid lane.
Yeah, I think once Ludens is taken, those can potentially be lethal. Keep an eye on Popcorn. This could be a Popcorn game to carry. It's going to be a knock-up. Tortwig actually
weird
dodged that. I
interaction.
believe it's the hook shot. I think that was with the hook shot. Able to stay away from that. Oh, here we go.
Oh, is he going to get all the way top? Oh!
Ooh.
Sniper
Tortwig.
across the map, but it means absolutely nothing.
Oh, Tortwig. I was kind of hoping Tortwig would go in there, but I think good recognition of Lyrq having Flash, having Call of the Forge God, having a lot of health. Yeah, that could be dangerous if he decided to go in on that. So deciding not to, but Hotels,
Did
I
get
see you.
Popcorn's flash.
See you right there.
Popcorn
get
flash
Popcorn's
arrow,
flash.
yeah.
All right, that's important. Okay, so Motels doesn't go unnoticed. Your what is it? Rocks, Tigers, game 4, arrow across the map. We see it. We see it.
Yeah, that's a call. That's a call. Just saying Rocks Tigers in modern day League of Legends just it makes you feel old.
I know, it really does. But that's like the greatest arrow play of all time, right? Like, undeniably.
Yeah, 100%. This might be the greatest Ornn play, but Lyrq very low now, dropped in the Hextech Ultimatum, gets a good knock-up. There's that true damage Gordo was talking about, and a flash for Tortwig, says this lane is mine now.
Yeah. At a certain point, Ornn just starts losing these, and all it takes is a couple Qs. Hold on.
There's the knock-up into the charms, but a charm return from Vizik. Can he stay alive? They're turning on to Ajax, though. The shield, look how much healing, but XRM0 with a BAP of the staff will find the trade. It might pick up more here. Getting some big autos. Should have a dash up, but Popcorn will stop the madness. Pick up a shutdown. Giving that a pretty good trade for Gravity.
Yeah, ends up being a 1-for-1, but like you said, that shutdown makes it uneven. Now the question is, how much can Motels get?
Ooh, Popcorn!
Oh, no.
That's just too damn easy.
Yeah, T-Tizzle. I mean, that's a mistake, right? You gotta say that's a mistake, overstaying there for the ward. Honestly, he just like me, for real, for real. I do that same thing. I get it, T-Tizzle. We've all been at the position. As a support player, wards are your lifeblood, and so you want to be able to deny vision, but gotta recognize overstepping right there, and I do that too. I feel like every support main in the world has that moment where you're like, oh, if I can just get this ward, I'm one hit off, and then you fall.
Now we're going to take a look, though, at the platings breakdown as those plates dropped. Decently even. A lot of plates grabbed here towards the bot side. Pretty standard for how much Motellus and T-Tizzle have been up in the grill of that Gravity bot side.
Yeah, they've been all up in their face, like you're saying. I will say the mid lane, Pico, has some kills back. So we were talking about how this mid lane was really in favor of Popcorn, but only a 1 kill difference and about a 12 CS difference. I think both of these mid laners doing all right with their current game position. The gold lead still hasn't grown past 1,000. It felt like ISU had themselves a really strong lead and haven't really been able to balloon it. Now this Rift Herald could do that if they can take down the entire turret, but it's only going to get 1 charge. Popcorn's going to drop it, and the gold lead continues to stay.
Interesting to see, though, the Popcorn actually going for that Leandries. I feel like that's usually the option against a more bolstered frontline kind of squad for Rihanna. Ludens would do really good because there's just so many squishy members, but both serve the purpose of locking in that Mythic for Popcorn, who will now be doing very big amounts of damage with these combos that he immediately throws out, trying to set Tarim up for a kill. Pico flashes away, the defensive Pop Blossom is just a little too late.
Yeah, Popcorn, beautifully played right there, is the benefactor. 4-1 right now on this Orianna. It's a huge problem to have to deal with. I think a counterpoint for the Leandries is how much poke is this Orianna going to be trying to do? I think there's not a lot of Wombo one-shotting. I think actually the strength of this Orianna is how much poke they do. Uh-oh.
Ooh, big arrow. This is why ISU drafted the Ashe, but will they end up trading? Tortwig is the target for Tarim. Flash for Lyrq trying to get the knockups. Good Hextech Ultimatum. Trying to turn it back onto Tarim. Force out the Lambsers. Respite. That true damage Q might do so. Hookshot whiffs though to Tarim. He's not willing to commit the ult, and he'll pay for it with his life.
Yeah, Tortwig right there. Beautifully played. That is a high-level Camille play, and Visit and Ix might have overstayed here.
Oh boy, here come the ultimates. It's too easy. XRM0 playing like a true Iowa State member with the Cyclone, and that's a big punish onto the Gravity bottom lane.
How long have you been waiting to call that? A Cyclone
I honestly,
on the Wukong.
Yeah, I'm
Did you
honestly
just think of that?
mad. I'm honestly mad that I didn't hold it for later, but
It's
no, of course. I mean, it's too easy, right? When they drafted the
it is
Wukong.
too easy.
Oh,
It is too
Motelis?
easy. I wonder if they did that on purpose.
Is Motelis gonna try and 1v1 an Ornn? He pops Ghost. All right, Motelis, let's see how your kiting looks on this Ashe, because you do negative damage. Decently trying to chunk down now, but it was all really a bait to set up Tortwig, so beautiful lure there. Put an 80 carry on a string, you can get anybody to chase.
Yeah, it felt like Torchwick wanted to give that kill over to Motelis, but doesn't really matter. Kill's a kill. You're not mad about that at all. Gold lead finally starting to budge. Really was at 1,000 for what felt like forever, but finally ISU up to 2,000 gold lead. They also have themselves 2 dragons. So with those resistances, things looking good, and
Oh no, there's a double Pop Blossom. Visit and Ajax, they can't survive on the Rift without having to burn summoners.
Ooh.
The arrow from Motelis. Pico's gonna commit the snare, pick up a kill, and thank his buddy Motelis from base.
Yeah, Motelis is crazy with these arrows. Just across the map, hitting so many of them. And that was a huge one as well. We talked about earlier, it would get a flash maybe somebody would have to back up a little bit, but that one gets actual hard cash in the pockets of the teammates. And now Motelis is feeling pretty good. Get some assists under your belt, get Pico up in gold. And this is looking like a good game right now. The Cyclones doing pretty good for themselves. Dragon coming up soon. That might be one of their win conditions. They already have 2. If they can get to 4, it really feels like they can potentially put this game away.
It's a really big soul for a composition that we've seen from the Cyclones here. Here comes Zero going forward to Clone. Gets a double up. There are no flashes on Ajax. The arrow lands. The encore is a return, but Zero won't be assuaged. He nearly pops Ajax, but it's actually going to be a trade with... But until Tarim coming across here, big charm from T-Tizzle has to drop the Lamser's Respite. Tarim couldn't do anything, and Motelis looking for a turn. Here comes Tortwig. Has the Hextech ultimatum if he wants to use it, but he's got to pick the right targets. The healing, he can't find any kills. Jumping onto Popcorn, but his team isn't here to back him up yet until Pico shows up. The Proto Belt finds one. Motelis gonna fall to the turret, but Pico will trade him with the Pop Blossom. It's trades galore, and Popcorn is now going forward. The solo lanes for Gravity. They're trying to find something to get back into this game. Popcorn kicks up another. The shield, will it save him? No! Tortwig flashes forward for the big empowered Q, and Lear Q with the hammer will make sure it's all up Gravity.
Gravity with a delayed ace right there, and Slayer, that's the thing about Gravity. We learned that as much as you try to get away from it, Gravity will always bring you back down, and they are rooting this team and bringing this game back to a competitive state. A delayed ace right there, just an extended fight that went all sorts of different directions. Oh, Tarim was not able to be the benefactor of any of those kills. Only 1 kill on the bot lane combined. But all of these kills, most of these kills, are on this mid laner. Popcorn is trying to pop this enemy team. And it's gonna have to be this mid laner, right? Sure, you have 4 kills on the orange. Sure, you have a scaling.
Oh no, not again. Oh.
80 carry. He was scaling jungler as the arrow goes wide. But it really does feel like Popcorn's going to have to be the main damage this game.
And that's going to be a tough task for this Orianna, but we did see that fight showed a glimpse of how Gravity can win this. We talked about the Wombo, right? But a lot of their ults are good for kind of disengage tools or just breaking up the synergy of this ISU attack. Because if Zero's jumping forward too far on his own, you can punish him well with that encore. If you see Tortwig jumps too far forward without the bottom lane coming across, you can turn onto this Camille as well. The only problem is, for me, Bonfire, giving an Infernal Soul to a team that's all about picking you off and blowing you up is scary.
Yeah, it feels like they gave up that dragon for nothing. I mean, when you trade across the map, you normally want to try to get something in return. It's one of the quintessential rules of League of Legends, always be getting something in return, and they were not able to do so. Tortwig might be the consolation prize, but a hook shot, no flash, so this might be it.
That was a really short shot. Tortwig already came up with a kill in a 2v1 last time. Has Arrow to support him. Now jumping on to Tarum. He does have Landra's Respite, has to drop it. Here comes Pico, though, to back up his top laner. Gets the stun. They're turning the fight. And mid lane, the bottom lane was 0. They're just rolling on all singular fronts. It's all up the Cyclones right now, and they're going to take everything from Gravity with it.
Yeah, Gravity. That's the thing about Gravity, is that it'll bring you back down as well. It brings you up, it brings you back down. Oh boy, a little bit of a misstep right there, but doesn't really matter. They get the kills that they need. They push out super well, able to extend this gold lead and do what they need to do. And so this ISU squad, while it looks a little dicey sometimes, their team play is getting it done. They're not looking as strong as we saw in their sweep against Kosa Gaming, but they're still getting the work done. They're still doing what they need to do. Now again, they need to worry about this team fight, because at this point, Lyric is nothing to be slept on. You know, I talked about how the damage is going to be condensed down to Popcorn, but Lyric is level 14, 5, 2, and 3, 164 CS. Already has 2.5 items and boots. I mean, this is a huge and absolutely massive Ornn. So you got to keep an eye on the Ornn in these fights, because it is not going to be easy to take him down.
And they've also got level 14 is a big marker to mention there, Bonfire, because that Leandres has been upgraded for Popcorn now. More of those Ornnizations will come through as Lyric levels up. But the big sore thumb for them is that they constantly are just trying to get Tarum back in this game, and they're failing at every front. That's another pick play they go for onto Torchwood to try and get Tarum some gold that comes up short. And it feels like Gravity, they're not going to have any shot at winning until Tarum hits some sort of baseline stat acceleration.
Yeah, Tarum has one item. It is rough right now for the Kindred. I mean, a singular item at 24 minutes is crazy. And so, yeah, I mean, this is a really difficult spot for Tarum to be in. You'd imagine they don't have many marks as well, if any. I mean, what is it? No dragons. I don't think they have any kills. Maybe an assist would have done, but it's been rough.
He's got two.
Two marks, okay.
Rough.
Yeah, that's brutal. Usually you want 2 at like 10 minutes. It would be like golden. Oh man, yeah, Tarum is not having a great game, but that's okay, because you know, you said it's a scaling champion, and so there is a world where Tarum gets 1 or 2 kills in a team fight, gets the marks, and is able to finish that second item finally, and things start to look a little bit better.
Yep, certainly will. And speaking of optimization, love this pick from XRM0 here. Picking up that Serpent's Fang. This is one of those few times where Serpent's Fang works on a Wukong here, because there's a ton of shielding that you have to get through from this Seraphine, from this Orianna. It's 2 members who are on those 2 item points, and they're also both have completed Seraphs, which could save them in a pinch, but the Seraph's Fang is going to make sure to negate any of those shields when XRM0 eventually does dive bottom lane in a big fight, or back lane of the fight.
Yeah, it could be a huge itemization, like you had said, and it just shows smart League of Legends, right? I think that we talk so often about good mechanical League of Legends and, you know, how you're able to get across the map and win your 1v1s and such, but I think an underrated part of the game is being able to itemize correctly in the middle of a game, and usually pros do it wrong sometimes, and so to be able to make a split decision right there, it shows that they are a smart player, which I'm sure ISU loves to see. You know, that their jungler is able to itemize correctly, able to get across the map correctly, and Popcorn,
Maybe a little bit of a bait here. They're going on a Torture again. Hextech Ultimatum immediately out, but just to create some distance. The arrow does hit Popcorn. Does T-Tizzle want to go for it? No, it's XRM0 though. He's jumping onto the back line. Cyclone, no response, and they just blow him up. You're right, Bonfire. Nobody there to support XRM0. It's Gravity with the turn, and what sort of timing is that? Baron is up, along with this Infernal Soul that could have been all ISUs.
Yeah, I talked a lot about how XRM0 is a smart player, and then they do that, overstepping. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great ultimate, but you need a little help from your friends. The Beatles told us that, and did not get that. He's able to stop Lyricu's back, but it doesn't really matter. They're gonna lose this dragon, and they could lose more.
Ooh, Taram's going forward now. Motella's going to have to run away. Big sets of charms, but D-Tizzle's really squishy. Could this be it? Taram finally on the board with a kill. Secures his team's first dragon. Is this Gravity turning the tides of game one?
Yeah, that is a huge blunder right there. Overstaying. Mortella's lucky to be alive as Torchwick's going to continue to chase. They might want the chase here. Ajax.
They're going to try and protect Ajax. The healing, the shielding, it's too hard to cut through. Torchwick may try, but Vision able to stay alive. The Hextech ultimatum, they aren't able to find it. They finally get on top of three-man Pop Blossom. The Lambster's respite is saving the Gravity squad, but it's all down to Lyrq now. He's lost all of his friends. Pico shows up just in the witching hour for ISU.
Yeah, we were talking about popcorn, pop, pop, pop in the enemy team, but it was really Pico with the pop, pop, pop blossom right there. Snags themselves 10, 4, and 3 on this Nico. That is a beautiful, potentially game-saving play right there, just when Gravity was trying to reel them back in. ISU create some distance, get themselves a huge team fight win right there, and they're looking for more right now. Lyrq can only stand and watch. Pop's call the Forge good onto Motella's, but I don't think it's enough right now. This Baron is certain to be taken.
What is Lyrq cooking here? They're just holding the aggro. He's delayed for a teleport. He's not dead just yet. It is going to finally fall to Motella's. Vision showed up. Good stopwatch from Zero to avoid the encore. Pico forces him out of the pit. They pick up the Baron. T-Tizzle, though, over the wall has to flash back. Torchwick now alone with all of Gravity. Trying to buy time for the Cyclones to come back around. Pico, big amount of damage from this Nico. Vision is popped. It's Baron for ISU. Terran trying to jump forward. Pico, Sonya's through the command shockwave. He will be the sacrificial lamb, but still the Cyclones coming back in this one after early blunders.
Yeah, they get a huge Baron right there. Lyrq just trying to stall enough time for Vision, but realistically, those members were not that low. They weren't low enough, at least, to be able to try to go for a miracle steal, and ends up falling for that, ends up losing the Baron, and this game got a whole hell of a lot harder. Modelis, the big member that has it, Pico didn't end up falling, but when this Ashe has the Baron empowered buff, these waves are not long for the world right now. They're just doing what they need to do in the jungle, getting red buffs and such, and then you'd expect the siege to come across. I would expect a 4-1 right here. Camille on the top lane, and then you throw 4 members in the mid lane. No need for a 1-3-1, just because of concerns that Pico, it might not be able to survive long enough. I think a 1-4 is probably the best, personally.
Important to also make sure to watch the infinite scaling factors on Gravity's composition. It's not just Taram. Ajax up to 84 stacks on the Senna, just past the 80 threshold to get some extra range here. But 100 could be a huge power spike for Ajax's Senna. If you could keep the Senna safe in the back of fights, free firing with that big range, with those crit changes like we talked about. You can see the Storm Razor on this Senna, likely building towards an IE with that pickaxe and BF sword. Could be a big factor. Infinite scaling, it never runs out.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I will say keep an eye on this Camille as well. Has been a huge factor in a lot of these team fights. Just finished Spear of Sojin, so it's a 3-item Camille. This is when the Camille really feels so daunting to have to go against.
Oh, Taram, did you overstep? Pop Blossom, Lambster's respite, keeping them both alive, but Pico's friends show up first, and Taram falls for a 9th time in game number 1.
Yeah, it does have the 3 kills. Does have the 3 kills, so it's not all bad. But yeah, 9 deaths is never what you want. That is nearly 50% of your team's dead.
Motelis, oh, he does get hit by the Encore, but there's nobody to turn the fight. Lyrq trying to be an assassin, and Ajax pops extra from Zero. Motelis having to flash away, barely surviving, but that leaves Torchwick on the front line towards the Enchanter Death Ball. Ajax picking up a double kill. Senna finally arriving to the game right when Gravity need him.
Den's down 7,000 gold. They're fighting these fights. ISU oversteps just a little bit, kind of a mistaken fight potentially, and could have huge ramifications, but as of right now, other than those kills and some waves being pushed out, nothing too crazy. And this is the big dragon fight. This is the big on 20 seconds on the Dragon's Soul. They are without Torchwick and they are without Zero right now, and so setting up this river control might prove to be difficult as the Gravity squad slowly make their way over. Slayer, I cannot highlight enough how important of a dragon this is.
This could be the game here, depending on how the fight goes. And it starts off with
Mortales.
Tarum getting picked again. Motelis, Tarum trying to find the trade, charmed up. He's gonna have to drop the Lamdra's respite. Pico's onto his backline though. Tarum, where was the ult? It wasn't available yet. That's a huge kill to find. Pico is traded, but that's jungler down for gravity. And XRM0 and Tortwig, they're not done yet. They're jumping on to visit. Can they get through the shields? A double cyclone onto Ajax, and Popcorn is gonna do it. Orianna falls. Ajax is next. Who needs the dragons? The Cyclones are gonna take game one with an ace.
Beautifully played right there. They did everything they needed to do and then some. And it was a split fight as well. It wasn't all members focusing on one, but a couple of key ultimates, some picks, and they got exactly what they needed. Only losing Pico, and Pico had a massive pop blossom right there to drop the health bars, and even with the Enchanter Death Ball, even with the shielding and the healing, they could not get through the absolute damage that ISU brought to the table. And so ISU continue to prove us right in this game one. Tarum, little late for that one, as ISU is going to take this game and move up 1-0.
Iowa State University's Gaming and Esports Club, G&E, looking like a very well-polished team as we welcome Gordo back in here. Gordo, it got a little murky at points. There were a couple maybe a little oversteps, but overall it felt like the Cyclones had control of that game the whole time.
Absolutely did, Slayer. A great showing there from ISU. Game got real chaotic there for a while. Tons of trades cross map coming back and forth. Kills for both sides. Team fights won for both sides, but I agree. It was ISU that took an early lead of a couple of thousand, and they maintained that lead the whole way throughout. Their fight wins ended up netting them more than the Gravity fight wins could, and that's what ended up carrying them through for the win at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was just a very well played XRM0. Really good Cyclones, right? I'm funny. It's funny that I didn't realize I didn't clock the pun until much later after the draft here. But gonna look at that post game breakdown. Bonfire tells a story that Tortwig's Camille, like you talked about, had a big effect.
Yeah, I think that the stats won't show it in terms of the KDA, but Tortwig was just always in the face and getting so much damage across. It was Tortwig and what felt like Pico as well. He's doing so much work, setting up the Ash for beautiful plays. And I don't want to. I don't want to say that Zero didn't do anything either. This Wukong was a huge problem. I will say the biggest thing that stands out to me: 30,000 damage on the Ornn. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy. That is kind of crazy, and then can't overlook Popcorn. Most damage in the game on this Orianna was a huge problem, but at the end of the day, too big of a mountain to climb.
Yeah, to me, the big highlight has to come through for Pico here. Damage charts do not show it, but was constantly able to find some of those crucial pop blossoms coming into the later fights. Really let them secure some of those important kills, especially in that last team fight where we were really starting to hit some of that late game scaling of the Senna Seraphine duo. We know how dangerous that can be in these late game situations. We know how much of a threat that scaling can be. But able to really shut it down in that last team fight, getting the 2-for-1, shutting them both out of the fight, and allowing you to get that one last fight win that you needed to be able to win out.
Yeah, that was really crucial because we talked about it was really big that they got in. I know the Infernals would end up mattering, but the fact that they could really stack those dragons meant that they forced that gravity team into those pits constantly, and you saw what a jungle flake can do for not only a Nico but a Wukong. Really just ended the game.
Yeah, it felt like the wombo and the combo was just too strong, and it was just the play of all of ISU. And that's the thing. We talk about certain members having huge moments in the game, but it really felt like you could single out any single player in that game, and they all contributed. And we haven't even talked really about T-Tizzle at all on that Rakan just consistently being a huge issue with the CC, the knockups. I mean, when was there a flash available for anybody on the side of Gravity? So huge shout out to T-Tizzle. But that's how you have to win games, right? It is a group game. You might hear in your solo queue games, I'm at 1v9, but when you get to a high level of play, 1v9ing not really a thing, and ISU goes to show that you need 5 members to get a W.
Yeah, definitely here. So, yeah, looks like we're going to send it to a little bit of a break here. We will be back in just a couple of minutes here as we Okay, we do have replays. Cool. All right. I was a little bit of miscommunication there. We do have some replays. Let's check on out this big turnaround in top lane. Slayer, walk us through this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is just really well played from Tortwig. This is the second time that they've tried to get Tarum. They were trying to force feed him stacks, getting him back in this game. This Kingdom's so far behind, but doing such a good job spacing and then jumping. The main thing in this 2v1 is you have to force Tetrarum to use that Lambjer's Respite, and that's when you can really change the fight with that empowered Q. And this is the problem with sending two constantly to go pick off Tortwig, is that you're leaving this very, very vulnerable bottom lane to just fend for themselves. They don't have their Ornn with them. They don't have Lambjer's Respite to bail them out if they get jumped on. And this is where Gravity, a play ago, were really starting to fight back into it. But the fact that they failed to go for this pick play on two fronts kind of sealed their fate, no matter how much Lyric you can do with an outplaying on that Ornn.
Yeah, no, doing a good job there showing. Yeah, we had a lot of these cross map trades where it was actually Gravity getting a little bit back into it, and it felt like at any moment, you could really see the coin land on the other side, see them win a big team fight around an objective like they did on that Dragon, and start to wrest a little bit more control back from the side of ISU. But ISU would always clap back with one more fight win on the other side, Bonfire.
Yeah, it really did feel like that was the strength of them, as I believe we have the next replay available, and it'll be interesting to see, how this went down. And let me think. Which one was this? Which one was this? I believe
This is the
this
Dragon
was.
they lose.
This is the Dragon that they lose, and then the overchase right here. Motella's overwalks right here. So this whole thing was also brought about. Zero falling early. T Tizzle falls as well. Motella should be glad to be alive right there, and this kind of started we believe to be the comeback. Right, you get the kills. It was 2 kills and a Dragon. Things were starting to lick up for the other side for Gravity, and things looked good. But the chase was just fantastic here. And this arrow, I mean, Ajax,
Ooh.
that's so brutal. Falls low. But I love, and this is something that I love out of the entirety of ISU this whole game, just the extended chasing. It's so strong, not pulling the trigger until you need to, and then this massive pop blossom finds 4. I mean, look at that damage. There's just no way you're going to win a team fight after that damage. And what we had thought could have potentially been a comeback, maybe some kind of change in the game from the side of Gravity, provided to be a dagger in their boot.
Yeah, that's like a 3-for-4 team fight when all is said and done, if you really want to consider it that way. But the timing is what ends up making all the difference. They get themselves losing the Dragon, but they come out with a Baron as a result. And you'll take that trade, even if you are on Soul Point, ends up favorable, ends up putting ISU in a good position to be able to take the game at the end of the day, Slayer.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we really saw the strength of that Camille pick. We've been seeing Tortwig praise a lot, but want to give some love to the ISU coaching staff to pick that there. You already got to look at Seraphine Senna, and what's a perfect way to break up the Enchanter Death Ball? Hextech Ultimatum.
Another great way is going to be that Pop Blossom. Let's check out our last replay here of the last fight, the one that ends up sealing the deal. It's a fight over the Dragon Soul once again, and Pico finding the engage onto really all 3 crucial carries there, but it's the flash out from Popcorn that keeps them from going on down and lets them clap back. But now they're already low on HP. Tortwig is hovering around, and it's Zero on the flank that is really able to seal the deal here. Motella's playing the bait role, really gets Learq way deep in there, and Zero then finishes off the job that Pop Blossom couldn't either, getting on top of all 3 carries and is able to run down each one in turn. ISU is able to close out the game off of this fight. They win it 5-for-1, and the Nexus cannot stand up this late in the game with death timers that long.
Yeah, really well played composition. I think the Wukong, the Camille accomplished their jobs. You had to have people diving backline to break up an Enchanter Death Ball. It's been a thing for a year. It's crazy it's coming back World Season, because last World Season we were dealing with this stuff too. But hey, maybe some of those teams boot camping in Korea, there's one way to break it. Make sure to get good on your Wukong and Camille.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a potential way to win Worlds. But I don't think either of these teams are trying to win Worlds. What they are trying to do is win this series. And maybe that's, maybe people are saying that the ACL is bigger than Worlds. I've heard that before. So this is a big series to win for both of these teams.
Absolutely. We'll see if they'll be able to get their next step towards an RCL title here. They can take on down each other. ISU 1 win away from being able to put a dub in the win column. So we're going to throw it to a quick break here while we get into Champion Select for game number 2. But don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with more League of Legends. Welcome back, everybody, to week 3 of the Risen Champions League, where we are already getting into picks and bans for game number 2 between ISU and Gravity. Looks like ISU is still going to be holding down on the blue side. Gravity selecting red for the second game in a row.
They got to be saying they want some sort of counter pick coming here. They want to play potentially through a winning lane. They didn't have too many of those last time. You know, that's what you get when you R5 a jungler. So maybe we'll see them try and set up one of these two solo lanes. So far, though, through picks and bans, looking pretty similar. I believe those are the Cyclones' 3 exact same bands. It's the exact same bands on both sides. I'm pretty certain. It was Akali, Gwen, Zaya, Rel, Gragas, and J4. And if it's not broke, don't fix it, Cyclones. Run that Nico back.
Yeah, it didn't really feel like there was any picks that like individually killed Gravity, so I get it. You don't have to give any respect bands over. We're just flying through this draft right now. As the Maokai Tristana, it felt like they were just going to pick that from the get-go, which I love. I mean, these are two champions that have really defined the 2023 meta. Maokai has always been strong, just great CC and great tankiness, and then the Tristana could be flex mid lane, could go to the bot lane, great scaling, good engage, good, good peel, so self peel that is, and so I like it. I like it. I like it. I also think Tristana is really good into a Nico quietly because goes for the pop blossom and suddenly you're being shot to, yeah, I don't know, South America, and there's you're not stunning anybody up, and so I do love these two picks from Gravity.
Yeah, still looking like a little bit of a run back from ISU, at least so far, but Gravity really turning their composition on its head, both with two new champion picks and with changing up the roles on the team. It was really all about the Kindred in the jungle as the main carry in game number 1 for the side of Tarim, and Popcorn on a little bit more supportive of an Orianna. Now, this time around, likely going to be Popcorn on that Tristana, likely going to be Tarim on the Maokai. Could still see a little bit of flexibility there. But ISU, they're keeping it running. They are going to take themselves the exact same composition from game number 1 if you'll give it to them. I do want to keep a close eye on what those jungle bands start to look like. Having locked in the Maokai for themselves, Gravity already have one available that they didn't previously. Let's see if that's going to go on towards the Wukong.
Gotta feel like that's a Wukong ban, right, Gordo? I will say, I'll give credit to Gravity. They are completely switching up their style here. So far, through the champions that we know are going towards lanes, they are drafting to be aggressive early. Nautilus, Dredgeline early, a lot of roots, a lot of early CC, can get you some first bloods in the bottom lane, can get you some early kills. And Tristana, like Bonfire talked about, I mean, you can throw that Bramble Barb over to try and lock up the Tristana, but if she's already hopping, she's hopping wherever she's going. If she gets on top of you, you're gonna have the resets come out. You're running Ignite on Tristana. Nico could be in a world of hurt, as we do see the first target ban come across. Despite the fact Gravity lost, that Ornn won't be showing up for them in game number 2.
Yeah, still no Wukong ban like you had talked about, which is interesting because I actually would agree with you. I think the Wukong was a huge issue for Gravity to have to deal with. I like the Ornn ban though, even though it didn't get it done, it still felt like it was a huge issue, and we actually won't see a Wukong ban. The Sejuani ban will ensure that we could have a full run back right now. Which I cannot remember the last time I've seen like a full run back, the same team top to bottom. And now I'm just kind of hoping ISU does that, because that would be pretty fun. See the same champions, see the adaptations that they might bring against new champions, and what how that would end up. But as of now, it is only the 3.
Definitely the Sejuani going to be a new one paying a visit in this draft compared to game number 1. So tanks across the board going to be limited now coming into the second phase of picks and bans. The Syndra going to be the lock-in for Gravity. So it looks like that Tristana is going to be paying a visit town bot, and they are instead going to look to put their mid laner on something. The instinct is to say more aggressive, but this isn't the Syndra of old. She does scale up still quite powerfully. Gonna be a solid matchup into the Nico nonetheless, looking to harass each other at range and should be able to stay out of range of those Tangle Barbs for long enough to play it safely. But there's that Wukong. I mean, untouched
Come
in
on.
the picks and bans, gonna get locked in again, and an opportunity for a Camille here to complete the full run back for ISU.
I don't like Camille though into Gravity's comp. I will say Camille was a lot better the last time around. I mean, she will have some success jumping on the Syndra, but Syndra, when she scales up, has the ability to kind of just pop you when you're on top of her. That's why I like the Syndra pick more than the Orianna, because when this Wukong goes forward, if you scatter the weak and then you unleash power, and Wukong gets below that 15% health threshold, he's getting popped before anything comes across. So Fiora is a lot better for dancing around the fights than Camille is, in my opinion. Still, though, it's still another duelist in that top lane for ISU, a very powerful top laner for Tortwig, kind of establishing himself as one of those duelist player top laners. But what does the counter look like, Bonfire? No Ornn this time, if you're Gravity.
Yeah, I don't think they need an Ornn either. I think you are fully in power to go whatever you want here because you have a Maokai and a Nautilus. Feel free to go anything. And Renekton, yeah, that does it. I will say, you tend to think of Renekton not going super well into Fiora just because of the trading pattern, but I think that Renekton is really strong into almost everybody, and so even though Renekton might not be the best into Fiora, it is still the crocodile that rains terror onto the entirety of the top lane. I actually want to quickly go back to this Fiora pick because I love it. I think that it's great when you've got such strong frontline in Maokai and Nautilus. And you have to be able to chase down Tristana and Syndra when they're running away. I think this is a great pick, and I think ISU. I can't believe I'm saying it because it's literally almost the entirety of the same draft, but I think they have a great draft once again.
Yeah, absolutely here. And something else to call out about this Fiora, right, is the Aatrox that was banned away last game. They don't feel the need to ban that Aatrox anymore because you'll take Fiora into Aatrox all day, every day if you can get it for yourself. It's pretty solid a matchup there. Starting to get in some results from around the league as we get into the in-client draft here. Michigan going to be going down 2-0 versus Pride Stalker Esports due to a no-show, I believe. I'm seeing the opposite up there that says Michigan 2-0. Maybe it was Michigan 2-0. Maybe I'm confusing this with
Yeah.
last week's results. Okay, it is Michigan 2-0. It's UBC 2-0 over CCG Maine. Kosa Gamer Squad is down 1 game to Gentle Hearts, and CCG Future's still a little bit TBD.
Newcomers also up 1 in their games against the Samikin fanboys. I believe that is FSB. So those are 2 teams. I think that's a big series. We talked about Gentle Hearts Gaming and, Samikin fanboys being kind of those teams that are kind of trying to challenge that S tier we put up, Gordo. So I'm interested to see how they're playing against those lower opponents. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll get to see one of them, in the playoffs make a deep run. But let's focus now. I'm going to throw back to this game because we do have, one similar comp. It's hard to make the same analysis again. I will say, of all the comps you can draft again, aggressive one that goes for picks like this, it makes sense. If you can continuously execute correctly a Cyclone coming across with a Pop Blossom, it really doesn't matter too much what the other 5 champions are on the other end. So Zero and Pico, why not try it again? If they could set up Mortellus to bop off like he did, there's no point in diverting.
Yeah, and the Ash was a huge pick last game. I think it didn't get its roses because it wasn't really setting up a lot of the fights, other than some kind of crazy arrows. It was a lot of the rest of the team. You looked at Pico and Tortwig, but I do think that the Ash has a potential to be to go absolutely nuclear. I can't talk today. I just can't talk today. And so I do think that I like the squad that they've drafted around Motellus. And it'll be interesting to see, right, if Motellus can have more of a high impact in the kill department because I think Pico got a lot of the kills. I think, Tortwig got a lot of the kills. But again, quietly, Motellus did quite a lot in that last game. And I think with the Fiora has even better of a chance to pop off this game.
Definitely does here. And, Tortwig clearly feeling pretty good about how that lane matchup went in game number 1, willing to blind pick a selection like this Fiora here. Now, going to be in a little bit more of a skillful matchup up against Learq's Renekton. Got a little bit of outplay potential there if you can stun up against that Ruthless Predator, be able to turn it back around up against the Renekton. Meanwhile, Renekton, definitely some space to play with in the lane bully department as well, can try to get themselves off to an early advantage and have a little bit more jungle support now with Tarim on that Maokai compared to the Kindred that they were stuck with in game number 1.
Yeah, right. There's a lot more. Oh, and you could get away. It was interesting because I felt like Tarim was kind of playing Kindred more like he would play a Maokai, right? It was a couple times late in those games where he was jumping forward, trying to jump on 1v1 Motellus, stat check Motellus. And that will, while you're not going to be stat checking on Maokai and AD carry, you're going to be setting up, rooting, and locking down an AD carry. So it felt like Tarim seemingly looks more comfortable, would potentially play more comfortable on these more engage-oriented junglers because kind of just looked out of sync on the Kindred for the entirety of that game.
Yeah, it did feel like Tarim just never really got into their groove, and I don't know. I'm kind of with you because half of it's on Tarim, right? Not finding the angles, and some of it's just working with the team. I think communication just wasn't there in that last game, and so it'll be interesting to see in this game if Tarim can play a different role, get more in the shot calling kind of seat, and potentially have a better game that way. Because sometimes it's not all about the damage; it's about directing your teammates into the right positions. As I think we're going to have runes coming up soon. Also, keep an eye on Learq on this Renekton because I don't think we're talking enough about how this Renekton could also carry this game for the side of Gravity. You look at the Syndra, you look at the Tristana, and those two really stick out. But man, a Fed Renekton is not a Renekton you want to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. A little correction from what we stated earlier coming in is CCG Futures, who have FF'd their series up against UBC. That's been corrected right up above me as it's coming in right now. CCG Main has rescheduled their match for the week, so we are not going to have them up here for today's bracket. But going back to our main series tonight, I completely agree with you, Bonfire. Really like to see that Renekton here and want to see what Lear Q is going to be able to do on it. They definitely have themselves some powerful options. Again, not so heavily indexed into scaling, but also not any scaling to be scoffed at either. Popcorn can get a little bit stronger as the game goes on, as he collects up those splitges of wrath. Then range advantage is going to kick in for the Tristana at one point or another, and these guys definitely have the ability to play kind of both sides.
And we saw that Lyric Q has the ability to play in the 1v1 very well. I mean, listen, I know Ornn isn't the same as Renekton. There's no knockups on Renekton to chain together, but just the way he recognized, the windows where he could get in those proverbial jabs, get in an uppercut on the Ornn, you can carry those over to Renekton. And, we talked about Bonfire, you mentioned it multiple times. Yeah, it's nice to have an Ornn, get to those Ornn automatations first, but he's building tank. He's not building to play fights and completely blow them up. Renekton is completely all about that.
Yeah, and with that Conqueror, I think we no longer have to have any guesses on what this Renekton wants to do. It wants to be a massive problem, and wants to be like one of those crocodiles in the Florida, in the rivers, just chomping down on anybody that comes into their domain. So it'll be interesting to see. Phase Rush on the Maokai, kind of interesting. Conquer on the Wukong. I'm just throwing out rune names. I don't have anything to say about these two. I'm just naming them as I see them.
I like the phase rush. I think it's
Yeah.
it's a good selection to be able to get away from the Wukong if he finds you in your jungle for certain. Push all your buttons. You're going to touch him 3 times, and you're going to be able to zip on out of there before you end up going down. That's going to be especially relevant, I think, in those earlier games. And given a lot of the Maokai builds these days, they do tend a little bit squishier, so going to be something that you're pretty happy with there.
Yeah, totally bad. And also, if you want to stick to somebody you're jumping onto, you're likely hitting them 3 times with your Twisted Advance, Nature's Grasp, all the tree-based abilities that Maokai brings together. This was the runization I was going to see. I know the meme from Divine last year was the Phase Rush Syndra. I wouldn't have hated it this time either, up against the Wukong for similar reasons, Gordo, you outlined for the Maokai. The first strike is really just signifying that this Syndra from Popcorn is about getting as much gold early when she's weakest so she can hit those variables later to blow people up.
Yeah, I think my concern with First Strike is always, First Strike's great when you proc it, and you're definitely going to proc it a fair amount, but Nico's not a schlub with the poke, and Nico also wants to do the same thing, wants to outpoke you, and so it really should be a poke battle in the mid lane. Expect low mana on both of them, and a lot of backing, because this Nico wants to get damage across, wants to force the Syndra out of lane. The Syndra obviously wants the gold. I will say, interesting to see lethal tempo on the Ash. So no longer going into the Enchanter Death Ball, as well as the really annoying bot lane to have to go into. Going to go with that lethal tempo. And then Tristana, sometimes you see press the attack, sometimes you see Hail of Blades. It is going to be the lethal tempo Tristana.
Yeah. I like the awareness there that they're going for the lethal tempo this time around. Really shows that they're thinking about the rune choices there from Motelis. They do decide that, up against that really weak early game matchup of the Senna Seraphine, we can really abuse this Hail of Blades. They do get some flashes out of it in game number 1, right? They were able to have some nice success in the bottom lane, and a lot of that due to some power that they had out of the Hail of Blades that they wouldn't have otherwise. This game, that's not happening. You're up against Tristana Nautilus. You're the one who has to be paying respect to the opposition, especially when you have yourselves a Rakan as your support. So they're just going to play it for the scaling. They're probably going to play the lane a little bit safer, and they're not anticipating getting these angles to force flashes under turret in the early game the way that they were able to in the previous matchup.
Yeah, really heads up play from the Cyclones. I will say, when was the last time you guys had no glacial augments in the bottom lane from supports? I can't remember the last time personally. I was assuming there'd be a glacial augment from this Nautilus, but it's not.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised we're not seeing any glacial augments or glacial, in general, just because it is such a strong rune. I think also it is one of the best runes on Nautilus, simply because you're always going to be CCing people. You know, when you're on Rakan, sure, only what, 2 of your 4 abilities CC. Maybe you don't hit them consistently. Maybe an Aftershock's a bit better because you're not as tanky. But Nautilus is always going to get tanky, and so yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one, Slayer.
Yeah, all right. It looks like we are ready to get into game number 2. So I'm going to send this over to you guys as Gravity looks to take ISU on for the second time tonight and looks to take us to a game number 3. ISU looking to close this one out in 2.
Stylish little rhyme from Gordo there as we're back on a Summoner's Rift here. And it kind of feels like this could already be, if you're a playoff hopeful Gravity team, you got to find a way back into the series because 0-3. I know I said it last time we got on the Rift bonfire. It's just such a death sentence.
Yeah, it really does kind of spell doom and gloom for your team, as both teams are having their own little parties across Summoner's Rift. The other team's not invited. It's like gang warfare almost. Nothing's gonna come from it from either team. Their parties are gonna conclude. Nobody's gonna be joining the wrong team, joining the wrong side, and everybody's gonna walk away happy. So nobody gets any advantages from the early game, but interesting to see. No spread as well, and so ISU and Gravity both have no idea that that happened, and so they might be concerned about wards. They might be concerned about somebody sneaking in. They just don't know.
Oh, there's a good bit of combat damage here, but Pico, I don't know, you ready for Ajax to be there? Doesn't have the team behind him, lands the dredge line, and that's that Nautilus damage, baby. W trade for Ajax.
Well, it's a cute trade when you really think about it. Sorry, bad joke, but yeah, good trade for Ajax right there. Getting good damage onto Pico, and Pico can't back as well, and so just a good trade right there. That's the first strike that I was talking about. Pico dodges out on the Q, gets the first damage off onto Popcorn, and first strike's not going to be available for a little bit. And so that's something to keep an eye on in the mid lane.
Bot side, Metellus will have the poke advantage in this matchup. But you have to be careful up against Ajax and Vincent, who are playing a completely different bottom lane to last, right? They were all about sitting back, poking, looking and waiting for their jungler to come down if they really want to do anything. Is Pico. My God. Just not missing any of those spells yet.
Yeah, it's so difficult to go into in early Nico, simply for the fact that the whatever it's called, the Q that you throw out. I'm trying to think of the actual name, but the Q that you throw out,
Blooming
has
Burst.
such a big range. Blooming Burst, thank you. It has such a wide range, and so dodging out on it is very difficult. That's why you normally see Nikos tend to go with Comet, because you're almost always going to land it, which means you can get some extra damage off with Comet. And that's also why I was kind of concerned about Popcorn going first strike. And so far, Pico is proving to be a very confident Nico.
Yep, playing pretty confidently like Lyrq is topside, who is on, like we talked about in the pregame, a much more bruiser, carry-oriented top laner with this Renekton who's been around in that role for a while. Tortwig, you missed the cannon. I saw it. That's tough.
Hey, let him be. You know, everybody misses
it's cannons. It's a lot of gold, man.
Cannons.
It's a lot of
There's
gold.
A lot of gold. There's a fair amount of gold to miss out on, especially this early when you're looking for your first item. So missing out on that, never going to feel good.
Oh.
Good stun, Tortwig.
Beautiful parry there to make sure the stun doesn't come across. That's gonna tell everyone their matchups, right? Is who's gonna get the stun on who.
Bro. And it's difficult as well because there's no tell for the stun on Renekton, so it really just comes down to how good are you and how well do you know your opponent. Oh, here we go.
Flash coming across from Ajax. They're trying to burn T-Tizzle. Zero shut up there too. Who's going to fall first? It's the Rakan, excuse me. And the rest of Gravity are going to flash away. Not willing to give up a trade here. So unlike game number 1, it's Gravity slaying first blood.
Yeah, Gravity gets a huge first blood right there, like you had said. Puts themselves in a pretty good position. I will say, kill went over to Ajax. Unfortunate. But still get the first blood. Still get the gold, and you get an assist onto the Tristana. You can never be mad about that. Just unfortunate, we'll say.
And now it lets them kind of establish tempo in this lane. Zero hanging around here to make sure that the wave doesn't get out of Metellus' control. But you'll take that as a small W unless Vincent gets knocked up here. Has Flash available if he needs it. Ajax trying to zone the jungler away. He is summonerless, and Zero knows it. He canceled the auto, though. Will finally get it with the BAP of the staff. And Zero hangs around bottom side and cashes in for it.
Yeah, that looked really dicey right there, Slayer. And that was dicey for ISU. I got nervous because difficult to kill a Nautilus early with no CC, but those slows from Ashe just show why she's the best AD carry in the game right now. You are never being able to run away from her. And right there it goes to show that why she's so strong. It shows her strength. They get the kill, bring the gold back into a reasonable position.
Pretty dead even. But Gravity clinging to an early lead right now, something that they have not had all series long so far. And it certainly helps that they're continuing to sort of pull away in the metric that kept them in last game, the farm, right? And it's mainly through Learq. He's going to get this wave to crash here. Torchwig is going to set up and cancel his back, but he did put the wave in a pretty favorable position. Might not think about backing now. He does have dominance. Torchwig is level 5. He could go for a play if he wanted.
Yeah, I think definitely could. Needs to get a little bit more damage early on. You have to understand, Torchwick still has flash. Hold on.
Ooh, Pico has flash available. Going to utilize the clone. Beautiful flash. Vincent jumps away towards his turret. Pico says, I don't need it.
That was really nice. That was very smooth from Pico. Smooth criminal in the mid lane. This Nico on Pico is looking really sneako. Able to get himself away.
How long were you waiting to make that one?
You cannot say that's corny.
How long were you waiting to make that one? That one sounds like it was in the vault.
Genuinely, you won't believe me. I just thought of it. I was thinking of something that, like with Pico and Nico for a while, but the Sneeko came in just at the very end. I'm proud of that one.
Well, like you, I'm sure Learq's kind of proud of how he's been able to establish himself in this top side so far. But Zero, next term, Zero getting something back. They've done a really good job, the Cyclones, of controlling the Drake pit. Mainly because Terran was so far behind in game number 1. This time, not in that spot, and Ajax is continuing to land these great dredge lines. Montelis has no summoners up, and Vincent is looking to punish him for it. They're jumping onto the Ash. Zero will claim Ajax, but he was a sacrificial lamb because Zero is now way too low. Vincent picking up the double. Pico's Pop Blossom is going to whiff. The resets are coming across for Vincent. It's all coming up. Gravity, they're not out of this series yet.
Yeah, Gravity with a huge counter punch right there. Ajax getting the all-important stun, and Perry misses. Torchwick could be in some trouble. Feeling pretty strong. That is going to be Dominus Pop, but Torchwick just walks away. But the real fight was in the bot lane, like we were talking about, and that is a massive fight to win. ISU now firmly in the hole.
Oh, flash from Learq. He wants the stun, but Tortwig is too damn shifty. Now baiting in because Zero's here. Learq falls for the bait like a croc looking for meat on the stick. He gets nothing.
Gets absolutely nothing, and it's a good consolation prize for ISU. They get some gold back in their pockets. They have a way back into this game with Zero being fed, but they're down about 2,000 gold, and a lot of that gold is concentrated on very important members. Gravity 2-0 and 3 on the Tristana, up 600 gold on the lane counterpart. 1-0 and 2 on the Syndra, up 400 gold on the counterpart. 1-0 and 4 on the Maokai, 1-2 and 3 on the Nautilus. So it's just going to be difficult to win this one out. There's still a lot of game left, still a lot of scaling. They're just going to need to win another team fight.
And if ISU can get those combos together with their ultimates, they could find success. They're looking for Learq once more. But Tarum is here in the background. Nature's Grass going to come out. These two top laners are pretty low. Good riposte. Runs up Learq, and Tortwig is going to be able to save Zero for it. Beautiful heads-up play, and Pico shows up now. He was a minion, but you don't want hands with this minion. The mid laner's coming across. There's a good kill for Popcorn. Pico now on his own against Tarum and Popcorn. Has the mana advantage, but can't land the spells. Popcorn, you gotta hit an orb. Oh, the jukes, the sidesteps. Is it gonna be all autos? No. Scatter the Weak gives Popcorn a killing spree.
Oh man, it got crazy up there in the top lane, but ISU just don't have the firepower right now. It looked close, and it was good job by Torchwick as well to make sure it was even that close. That riposte was massive to stun up the Renekton. And Learq not in a great position. Another good really got dredge line, nothing to be found from it. But man, it is brutal. ISU keeps feeling like they're in these good positions to try to make something happen and just continue to lose out.
Now they've once again inflated Popcorn for a second game, 3-0-2. In my opinion, way scarier to defeat a Syndra early than Orianna because she has the ability to just decimate anybody that's like half squishy. And with that percentage health, execute on her ultimate. Up against the comp that's tankiest member is a Wukong. Good luck, and T-Tizzle still feeling the brunt of Ajax. That's the leap down for Vizen, but the dive coming across. They weren't expecting Tarim, and it's 2 more kills for Vizen.
Gravity is running away with this one right now. I mean, this is Pico dead.
Oh my god.
This is nothing like we've seen before out of Gravity. I mean, this is domination.
0. The only like semi-fed member of the squad. He's 4-1. Thinking about trying to 2v1 there with that dash forward, but won't commit to it just yet here. And yeah, this is desperation time for ISU. They're gonna have to find some sort of big plays once they group together as a team, but they're already down 4,000 gold at 10 minutes.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? If it's a little bit of a gold deficit, you just wait for another team fight, you play through your lanes, but they're just continuously throwing out Hail Marys, and eventually one of those are gonna get intercepted, and that's exactly what's happening right now. ISU looking like the Bears against the Chiefs, just nothing going right.
You just taking shots at yourself.
I know. Gotta lap through the pain somehow.
I guess so. I guess so. Fair enough. Does look like now, though, Tarim will set up onto this Rift Herald. Which he's done a much better job is picking up these neutral objectives, like we talked about, because grab that first Drake is another dredge line from Ajax. Maybe found his champion with this Nautilus. Motelis had the stopwatch, does have to flash out, and we have another split fight coming across here. Pico, another Pop Blossom finds nobody. Popcorn very low, though, and will give a big shutdown. That's Grand Challenge. Figured out. Torchwick is the grand champion of this fight with a double kill. 0, the Blast Cone brings Lyricue back towards his team. There's no more Dominus, though. He's running out of cooldowns. Gets another stun across, but doesn't have any friends to help him. Torchwick just hitting all the parry points. Pico with a great Bramble Barb. It shut down City, and the Cyclones, oh, they might not get Lyricue. Slice and dice, and he somehow escapes towards his turret.
Wow, Lyricue, that is crazy, but the consolation prize that you're able to survive that, because that is a disaster for Gravity. They were just extending this gold lead, continuously pushing their advantages, and now it's shrunk down to 2,000. Now it's a 2-1-2 Fiora that you have to deal with, and a 4-1 Wukong. I mean, this is terrible. They don't get any kills in the bot lane either. That looked good before we switched away from it. Does look like they're going to be able to get this dragon, but Gravity slipping up in a crucial point right now, and this lead is getting whittled down.
They are, however, much in control of the dragon stacking. It looks like we'll get a Hextech soul as well. One of the upper echelon souls to get for any team. Arguably the best one in the game currently.
Yeah, it is difficult to go into. I'm having nightmares thinking about having to go into a Hextech soul with a Maokai. One sapling and suddenly your entire team can't move at all. Just scary, scary, scary. Popcorn getting some damage down. And also, Hextech Soul would make Popcorn's job with a Scout of the Week unbelievably easier. Just constant slows, unable to dodge out on the Scout of the Week into the damage combo. And so ISU have to be worried about this Soul, but still some time, at least 10 more minutes until it spawns. And so they have some time to figure out how they want to move around the map. And this is a good drop, but Tarim is here. They're being wrapped. No teleport on Lyricue or Popcorn, though.
Looks like it's going to be a straight-up 3v3. 0, the Fed member trying to jump on Vincent. The depth charts, though, they're locking the Wukong down. Vincent is more than safe, and Ajax is going to find that kill. Turning their attention to Motelis. It's a big jump forward for Vincent, right in front of everybody. But Gravity is here. You can't escape it. It will pull you down to the depths.
Yeah, that fight wasn't even close. They tried desperately. They dropped Rift Herald, try to fight it out, but a beautiful flank right there from Tarim. And, you know, we talked about how there was a potential comeback after a couple of kills for ISU, but Gravity slammed that door as soon as it creaks open. They are in a dominant position now, 4,000 gold ahead. They get first tower on their Tristana. Tarim is a massive problem, and this is a great bounce back to see from the jungler.
Ooh, and Tarim's looking for more, like you talked about, the Flash Nature's Grasp. Lyricue hitting one more gap close here. There's a good parry play for Torchwick. The speed up These top laners just get out of these 50 situations, both of them now.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to be able to survive there, but again, this continues my point about how strong Terramus had of a bounce back game. I mean, just made something happen in the bot lane, runs up top and forces Tortwig into a unbelievable escape. I mean, it's unbelievable to see. Oh, Lyric-Q.
Lyric-Q might be overstepping, but he's baiting for Vision. This very fed Tristana 5-0 and 5 and make it a 6. Dominating is the Gravity AD carry. Gravity are just always at the right spot at the right time. Terra's been leading that charge, looking for more. Dandy Gap goes onto Pico here. Does get 0, who goes for the clone, but they knock him back towards the team. They're near tier 2 turrets. The Scour of the Weak finds nobody. The flash forward, unleashed power, unleashes a flurry of damage onto 0. Gravity in the wrong jungle can't do wrong, and that arrow doesn't mean squat.
Does not mean anything at all. Motellus is able to get a turret on the bot side, but there goes the turret in the top side. ISU clean up on aisle 4. This one's looking dusted. This one's looking difficult to come back from. The run back just not really working out. It feels like they've just been completely outclassed in almost every single lane. 0 and 3 in the bot lane, 0 and 3 in the mid lane, 0 and 4 in the support role. And this just isn't going to cut it for them to win this series in 2. And like I said at the beginning of game 1, if you are this Gravity squad, you want to prove everybody wrong.
Beautiful play from T-Tizzle to get the cancel on the hop. Vision, though, utilizes that ultimate to get away, but the shutdown across for 0. Is this the turn for the Cyclones? Well, that Cyclone might do it. 0 picks up a double.
You're not allowed to do that. You already made your first Cyclone joke. Even with the bad puns aside, I'll give it to you. And they'll give it to ISU right there. That's a massive fight to win. A couple of shutdowns. X0, very rich. Motellus does some considerable damage as well when left alone, so curious to see what a team fight might look like.
Motellus is 2,000 gold behind his counterpart, though. I will say that is almost the majority chunk of the gold lead now for Gravity is Vision off the Seraphine duty, looking a lot better on a traditional. Oh, I didn't even. Oh, God, that's rough. That's rougher.
Yeah. It is rougher. But, like I said, in isolation, they still are doing damage. I think Pico probably is not doing as much damage, but, this is a Ashe with Kraken, already has the boots, so maybe there is something to be said, but yeah, just in general, Vision is massively ahead, Popcorn is massively ahead. Interesting to see as well, I want to know what you think about this. Liandry's on Syndra?
Yeah.
All right. I feel like Syndra is 100% a Luden's character, but okay.
I don't hate it. Liandry's, most champions can go Liandry's or go Luden's respectively. It works well on either. And just looking more for general full team damage than just single target, which, Syndra is a lot about. I know her ultimate all is about one-shotting, but you don't need the extra Luden's burst for that one-shot at all, especially at the level that Popcorn's is. So you want that spread out damage for those Scour of the Weeks, for those Spheres that are hitting multiple members.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I've been convinced. You've turned me. I am a believer now. Someone who might not be a believer is ISU fans. But they have brought the gold back to a decent position. I mean, they're only down about 3,000 gold. I can't believe I'm saying only there, but they were down like 5,000 earlier. And so there is a world where they pick themselves up by their bootstraps and figure this game out, but it's going to have to start with killing the Syndra, killing the Tristana, who unbelievably, by the way, don't have shutdowns. With that massive gold lead in the lane counterparts, 5-1 and 3, 6-1 and 6. No shutdowns? Really, Riot?
I believe they both got their shutdowns claimed recently. Vision definitely did. That last fight, he lost. Yeah. I actually believe 0 has both of those shutdowns. That double Cyclone was what grabbed both of those shutdowns. Oh, maybe not. One of them. Definitely Vision.
All right. I can respect that now, and I guess the gold lead isn't so massive. There is still neutral objective shutdown, so maybe that's where they can benefit from some gold influx. But I just can't believe these two members don't have shutdowns. But I guess you're right. They probably did recently get them claimed as on the bot lane. A little bit of a switch up Torchwig against Lyric-Q. Freaky Friday. Why are they in the bot lane? Well, it's because the laning phase is over, and with the end of the laning phase comes the beginning of the team fighting phase, which is, I think, what we were almost excited to see.
And here's the team fight. Here's the pick comp in all of its glory. It's in its second game, but Tarim is no Kingdren. This is a tanky tree to burn through. Zero will grab the killing spree. Teleports galore coming out. It's enough to assuage Gravity from trying to get the trade back. Lyricue starting to struggle to fight Tortwig's Fiora by this point. Doesn't have that kill department to back up the gold. And the Cyclones got to respect the resiliency. They're fighting back, and they might look for more here.
Yeah, they could 100% look for more, but the counterpunch.
There's a big counterpunch. All the CC down. T-Tizzle falls, but they left Ajax just to burn. Tortwig, oh my god, jumping forward. Huge riposte to stun up Popcorn into the Pop Blossom. Everybody is falling. The Cyclones are far from out of this game, far from out of a series sweep.
They forgot about Popcorn. Pico should be able to pick this one up.
I don't know. That's a good scatter of the
No,
week.
no. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, goodness. Slayer, that's just a disaster. I mean, look, they still get the team fight win. They're still happy about that, don't get me wrong, but Popcorn was dead. They just needed one more auto on it. Tortwig went instead to try to kill Viz and burst down the 80 carry. That's gold that you're leaving out on the table, and Pico dies at the end of it. That is a feels bad moment right there. They are not going to be happy about that, but still, like I said, did get the team fight win.
Curious if Lyricue's teleport just came up too, because the reason why ISU were able to fight so well there was because when they went for those picks, they had teleports coming across. When they grabbed the kill on Tarim, they had Pico teleported. When they grabbed the pick on the Ajax, despite losing T-Tizzle, they had Tortwig teleported. I don't know where Lyricue's was. Popcorn's was obviously down. Who knows what that fight looks like if you have a giant croc in the middle of it.
Yeah, I think the teleport might have been down because you really would expect Lyricue to teleport on one of those. It's not like was over pushing in a side lane and just really wanted to get an inner. I think Lyricue definitely would have teleported, but yeah, I mean, missing the croc there really proved to be deadly. And it goes to show that even though Lyricue still in isolation, losing fights out to the Fiora at this point in time, still is a massive factor in team fights.
Huge factor, and at this point, is going to start dominating against this Renekton in the side lane, because as good as Renekton can be, as good as he is in the prevalent in the meta with that fighting ability, he's behind already, and the point of Renekton is to kind of spike in the mid game. He's not late game spiking, so if he falls behind early, when his power spike's supposed to come along, the other team's going to have the items to deal with it. He's not going to be able to bring that damage across. Lyricue's Renekton pick could become a huge problem as this game goes on.
Yeah, it doesn't even have a second item yet. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, this Fiora does have the two big items as well for the Fiora. I also want to direct your eyes to the bot lane, right? Because we've spoken a lot about this Ashe versus Tristana difference, but realistically, they're both at two items. They're both at boots. It's just some components that are separating these two, and so do not count Motelis out.
Yeah, the big difference still here is the fact that Popcorn is so much further ahead, but Ajax, the target of the pick here, do you want to go for a tanky Nautilus? That's the question, because Zero is going to get blown up. That's the big damage right now for the Cyclones. Pop Blossom for Pico just doesn't bring the same punch from game number one, and that's also the jungler down. Popcorn frontlining, making sure T-Tizzle doesn't have an angle in. Ajax very low, but certainly very comfortable about it. Dragon is up, Soul Secure Dragon and Baron up. And ISU have no Zero with them.
Yeah, they're going to have to fight this one out if they want anything to do with it. They can't just go down to a flip. But they're not in good position right now. They're still clearing out mid waves. I mean, Torchic is falling so low to Popcorn. I think this is Soul.
This should be by all accords Soul. At this point, if you're the Cyclones, you have to sack it. There's no Miracle Steel coming across. Hextech Soul for Gravity. And for all their miscues these last 5 minutes, that might be the badge that pushes them over towards a game 3.
Yeah, that might be the dagger. That might be the dagger. I think that a Hextech Soul is going to be so difficult to come back from if you are the ISU side. And at this point, you just need to hope for a huge fight, a huge pick. That's where their strength has lied, it felt like. But an extended fight, anything that has to do with fighting over a long period of time, you can count your lucky stars if you win that one. Hextech Soul. Such a difficult soul to deal with.
The slows, the extra damage, the tenacity coming across in some of those abilities, or excuse me, the ability haste, not tenacity, coming across. It's just such a powerful soul, and that last fight really illustrated the difference between game 1 and 2, right? Bonfire, I mean, Pico was hitting those Pop Blossoms last time and blowing everybody up, but this just doesn't have that same punch at 0-4.
Yeah, Pico is very, very far behind. I mean, the least CS out of pretty much everybody, only less CS than the Maokai. Obviously, we're not going to count the supports, so not CSing well, not getting kills, not really getting assists. Just a difficult game. Arrow's going to go wide on the Syndra. Feels like it is desperation time right now, and ISU just kind of getting bled out, losing control of their wards, losing control of vision. Zero.
Ooh. Zero's trying to be the one-man hero, and he is going to find Vision and flash out. Once again, the Cyclones respond, but Popcorn, oh my god, that's disgusting damage. Pico didn't have a chance in the world to do anything. And Popcorn's still hunting. He has unstoppable force if he wants it. The roots lining up. T-Tizzle able to dash away. The flash unstoppable, unleashed power. Montelis was full health, so he will take that brunt. Here comes Tortwig, the Fiora, but the slows from the Hextech Drake, the extra ability ace, make sure that the damage keeps on coming, and the Croc is jumping on your black line. Lyricue so low, but he will fall to Motelis. Can the turn come once more? Tarim getting burnt down. Has Zero on top of him, now full health. Ajax able to find the kill onto Torchwig, and Popcorn's getting the cooldowns he needs. They have to kill out Popcorn, but he pops both them with one spear. Popcorn grabs the ace. Gravity are still leading.
This mid laner, man, Popcorn, one to keep an eye on in this league. In the first game was a massive problem, but wasn't able to do enough. This game is doing more than enough. 9, 1, and 7. A massive team fight win for Gravity. Felt like that might have been the last breath right there from ISU. Still in this game by technical accounts, but they're down 6,000 gold. They just lost Baron. They don't have Soul. The only hope of this game right now for them is the Elder Dragon. That doesn't spawn for another 3 minutes. That fight, they had some good moments in it. Zero's having a good game, but as a whole, just not really sure how you're supposed to win when Popcorn goes untouched. Lyricue, Ajax, Tarim, too much of a front line to have to deal with, and Popcorn just popping them.
And there was no Pico, right? So the fact that Zero gets that amazing pick on the Visit doesn't matter because Pico didn't even get to play the game. He was stunned up, rooted up, and Popcorn, if he's killing off Nico without that unleashed power, good riddance.
Good luck. Not really much you can do about it. We've highlighted a lot how this Nico not really doing enough in this second game. Feels like the enemy team has really game planned pretty well for it. They saw the strengths that it brought in the first game, counterpicked it pretty well. Right now, just sieging with the Baron. I don't think they're going to be able to target him.
You can't go for the tree. It's just too tanky of a member from Tarim, and it really feels like desperation now. This might even be the game if they want to keep the push going. That's virtually the entire front line down for the Cyclones, and another stun for Popcorn.
Oh
what kind of damage is that? Pop Blossom from Pico coming back out, but that is a very, very underwhelming Nico. Torchwig, Sundubs, surrounded by all of Gravity, will find a fleeting kill, but it's 4 for Gravity. They've got their eyes on the base, the Nexus, and most importantly, a game number 3.
Gravity comes back. Every single member of the ACL broadcasting staff said they were going to lose 2-0. They might still lose, but they're definitely not losing 2-0. They show signs of life. The jaws of life will keep them here. And they will bring us to a game 3, to a decider, to an all-important game where they can just they can avoid going 0-3.
First game 3 of the Risen Champions League, Gordo.
At least the first one we've had on stream. Maybe the first one in general, actually. I'd have to go and check the actual, the history there. There were definitely a lot of 2-0s, so maybe we haven't had a game 3 period of all games. All right, production is telling me right now. I don't even have to go and check it for myself. First game 3 we have had in the Risen Champions League. I knew we would get there. at some point or another, although I didn't predict it for tonight. ISU Varsity now going to have to go into a game number 3 up against Gravity. And it's a dominant showing from Gravity. They look like they are able to snowball that game really effectively off of that early lead they got from the Dragon.
Yeah, this is why you don't run back team compositions. Even if the mission's simple. We're talking about a different level, all right? This is Risen Champs, guys. There's no cap on these players. These guys have seen every ugly side of solo queue, and they're working together really well here. Gravity, shout out to Dabimon making the right adjustments with this comp, because this composition looked nothing like their game one.
Yeah. Shout out to the Syndrome. Popcorn, 32,000 damage. Holy moly! That's a lot of damage. That is, I think, a dominant showing from the team, but I want to say that Popcorn is quickly emerging as maybe one of the best mid laners in the league. Even in game one, in the loss, obviously, still showed out on the Oriana in this game. Just was dominant, 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 dominant on this Syndra. And yeah, the Tristana had a good KDA. You could say that some of that damage came there, but if you saw the damage chart, it was really all on the Syndra. And so, if you're ISU Varsity, how are you able to deal with that?
Absolutely, and looks like we've got some of our replays ready here. Let's check out that first team fight where the lead really starts to get built up for Gravity here, Slayer. Oh, this is the post-game breakdown, actually, but we're going to have it in a second.
That was the gold lead you were talking about, Gordo, but here's the point at which it really came, and this is just the difference, right? Is that I love Tarum on this nuisance frontline jungler where he can set up his carries, and there he was able to do such a good job jumping forward, locking down Zero, and once you start letting a Tristana reset, you aren't winning anything, and you can just see Vizen be able to jump forward constantly. Popcorn been a factor in a lot of those kills as well. And something else they didn't do last game, picked up that first Drake.
Yeah, they got the first Drake, and more importantly, they got the kills. It was 2 on Vizen, 1 on Popcorn. It felt like that's where the snowball really started. Earlier in the game, I had mentioned it's one thing to get kills, it's another thing to get kills on your carries, and that's exactly what they did. Tarum got the assists as well. There's gold flowing into the pockets of the most important members, and it's not all on one member. Sure, Vezin getting a quadra kill or Popcorn getting a quadra kill would have looked great for the cast, but it also means that it allows the enemy team to funnel onto somebody. And right there, the fact that they split them up fairly evenly meant that, yeah, every time you want to hop on Vezin, there you go. There is Popcorn. Every time you want to hop on Popcorn, the Tristana is going to eat you alive. And so that fight had real ramifications.
Definitely did, and we start to see it later on where the game starts to get a little bit closer, Bonfire. Check out our next replay where we see some of the fight back that ISU were able to provide. Well, I guess through this one.
Yeah, ISU did not lay down and die, and that's what you have to say. This is their pick comp in action right here. Even on an incredibly tanky Tarum, they're still able to burn him down, and they get flash out of the Maokai, and now they're kind of running all over the place. They don't know what to do. They got the pick, that's important. Lyric Q just kind of trading with Tortwig, running around again, but then they find another play here, and it's Vizen and Ajax, and yeah, Popcorn shows up. So there could have been a potential counterplay, but again, it's just showing fight in these plays, and there's no Tarum. And that's what's critically important about this is without Tarum, it doesn't feel like they have the front line or the CC. And then this is what I was talking about. How different are things if Torchwick gets this kill? Look at this. They go entirely all on Tristana. Popcorn just runs away, and they end up dying. And once it could have been a 3-for-0, something of that sort, ends up getting a kill back over to Popcorn. It's unfortunate, but as a whole, in isolation, it does show that there is fight left in ISU.
Absolutely there. They have some real close moments there, much like that one where it really could have potentially turned a lot around. That would have been a lot of shutdown gold coming out of Popcorn. I think they were still unkilled at that point in the game. Had certainly built themselves up a hell of a shutdown that anybody on this team would have loved to be able to claim, but especially going out of that Fiora, who was such a big force in the side lanes and really very nearly came close to turning around some of these team fights.
I love the recognition from Gravity as well to adjust. It felt like they were a little too obsessed with taking care of those carries in the last game, which for a reason made a lot of sense. But in those fights you saw, they were constantly knocking down T-Tizzle or XRM0, and those are the Catalyst guys. So if you knock down the Catalyst, those carries are just left there to suffer.
Absolutely here. And let's check out one last fight here. This one's real close, but it's really what cracks things open for Gravity. They've already got the soul. Zero starts out the fight, finds his way on to Vision, and is able to take them out. So this is now a 5 versus 4, just a little bit late on the join in from the top side. And
Oh,
Popcorn evens it out instantly with that 0 out onto Pico, buying some more space. Fiora still not able to rejoin, and now it is an unfair fight for the side of Gravity. They're able to hunt down the rest. The TP now coming in to try to turn things back around, but notice how Metellus is just getting forced completely out of this fight, and he's really the last damage dealer here. Learq doing a great job of just keeping them marked, keeping them unable to participate, flashing in, keeping the distance away, and meanwhile the fight is just being lost on the other side. Tortwig can't do this in a 1 versus 3 situation. They finally take down Learq, get some healing back over to the squad, but Popcorn is the name of the game. He's so fed at this point in the game, is able to keep on turning it back around, dodges out on some crucial CC, and it just all turns around. One more big Dark Sphere, a hook back in from Ajax, and a close out for Gravity.
yeah, that was some Syndra team fighting mastery, because a lot of Syndras can get caught in the pandemonium. They're not looking at their cooldowns a lot. You have to utilize those cooldowns for spacing, but those were multiple double scatter the weaks landed, multiple stuns, really good spacing. And Will plays Dark Spheres. It's not easy to land one orb onto 2 people. Made it look easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think. Oh, just one last thing I wanted to say. I think Popcorn had an incredible game, and I think you highlighted one of the best parts of the game from Popcorn, which is the spacing. I think in every single team fight, it was so difficult to get onto Popcorn because of the recognition. Yeah, I've got frontline. There's no need to offer myself up.
For sure. We'll see if they're going to be able to carry that forward coming into our game number 3 here. Looks pretty solid on the Orianna. Got a lot more space to shine on the Syndra. Now going to have one more game to see if they could take Gravity to their first win here in the Risen Champs League. We're going to throw it to a quick break, but we'll be back with the game number 3 draft in just a few short minutes. Welcome back, everybody, to the broadcast of the Risen Champions League, where we have got ourselves Gravity taking us to our first Game 3 of the season up against ISU Varsity, and ISU taking their first trip to the red side of the night. They finally get themselves a side selection, and they are going to give themselves that 5th pick counter pick to try to even up the odds and take themselves this series.
And Gordo, with the side swap, you hope bans don't look the same because, you know, it's a whole different ball game when you're playing on the red side. Gravity's still going to ban away that Rel, and they'll take away the Nico as well from Pico. So, interesting shift to see here. On the other side, Cyclones, they don't ban away Jarvan for once, and look at that. Gravity been banning away the Jarvan. And this is what happens, right? When you go to the blue side, Bonfire, it shows which one of those bans that they wanted to actually have if they were on blue side.
Yeah, Jarvan is too good not to pick up in the first pick, and just one of the strongest champions in the game, not even just junglers. So I think that is an easy instant lock, and I like this response though. Xayah, a very strong AD carry right now, and has quite a lot of good self-peel with, you know, going against a Jarvan you kind of might need. The Sejuani was banned in the last game. We haven't really seen it really prioritized that highly. I'm a huge Sejuani, guy. I think that Sejuani is a incredible jungler, especially if you're able to get a melee top or a melee mid. It just gets even stronger, and the CC lockdown is just super strong. So I like the Sejuani pick as well. I think so far we're 3 for 3 from both teams on good picks.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, the Xayah and Sejuani selections now, two that have been taken off the board consistently throughout tonight's drafts, going to come on through for the side of ISU. See if that turn around to the AD carry position is going to end up making a big difference for Motelas, who has been on that Ashe in back-to-back games. Now going to be the Varus being hovered over for the side of Gravity. So they are going to look to change up the bot lane matchup as well for Vision. Haven't seen them on the Varus yet this season. Going to be a really interesting one to play perhaps a little more aggressively into this Xayah lane.
Yeah, fair point to make. But I'm interested to see. You know, the whole year it's been all Varus talk. It's like, oh, lethality Varus is broken. Now we're going to see Varus shift away towards the on-hit, more lethal tempo. I think that's kind of where we are now. I would expect that to be the play here, is we do see Popcorn. Syndra was open. Orianna had a lot of success. Popcorn's been playing really well the whole series. Orianna going to go back. I like that a lot more. This Cataclysm and Shockwave together is just, you know, it's like strawberries and melted chocolate.
Peanut butter and jelly. Strawberries and melted chocolate as well, though. Kind of an underrated combination. For me, chocolate and peanut butter, my favorite combination in the world. Gangplank has been banned out, and I'll tell you what, Gangplank and ISU is pretty good combination themselves. They love that pick, and yeah, Gangplank, not bad right now, but it's less about the mecha and more about the pilot. And yeah, they definitely have a pretty good pilot. Tortwig on this Gangplank, something to be feared.
Absolutely. In the midst of all the discussion about Popcorn after game number 2, you got to look back towards Tortwig, who's been putting together themselves a pretty solid series all night. Now going to get onto that main champion that has been the focal point of so many ISU drafts. It is that Gangplank. Been banned away in the round 2 bans both games so far. This time they take it in their top 3 to make sure that it is going to be available. This is also going to save them. Could be a mid lane counter pick here on R5, assuming that they don't want to take themselves a support that late. Now support ban's going to start to be the result. The Rakan taken away here. The Nautilus banned away by ISU. They're going to take away the Seraphine as well to deny maybe one of those more scaling focused setups. Although Seraphine Varus would be an interesting lane combo to me.
Yeah, that'd be a little too much charming rooting up. I feel like you don't need that much chaos coming across from two squishy members of a bottom lane. So I agree with you there. Does allow, if you are Gravity, you do get a kind of counter pick. They actually ban away the Syndra. They thought Pico might pull the Syndra off against Orianna. That's always an interesting little interaction to see with this series. But you do now get a counter pick on blue side. I know Torchwig has been really good on the Gangplank, but there's a lot of good early champions that can punish a Gangplank well that it'll go up against Torchwig. The problem is, how much are you willing to sacrifice the comp you want to put together to give a duelist over to your top laner is no. Whoa! I don't think I've ever casted a Fizz. I'm not going to lie.
I don't think I have either. I guess they really favor it into an Orianna. It'll be interesting to see because Fizz wants to be in your face, wants to be constantly dashing in and out of you, on top of you. It's very annoying to have to go against. Also difficult to target a Fizz with the ability to hop on top of the Trident and apparently dodge everything in the world thrown at him. That being said, I think there's a reason you don't see Fizz a lot, and that's because it's the reason you don't see Zed a lot. It's single target damage for the most part. Yeah, sometimes you're able to get multiple targets, but usually it's not fantastic. It's also not really an assassin's meta, and so it'll be interesting to see what this Fizz is able to get done. I'm very excited for this game right now.
That's a spicy one for sure. So going to be taking that R5 support here. Yeah, I don't get to see a lot of Fizz either here. Slayer, play trivia for you. What's Fizz ultimate called? You
Chum
got
the
it?
waters.
Let's
Churn
go.
the water. Oh, I thought it was
All
churn
right.
the water.
We're ready
Chum
for
the
Chum the
waters,
Waters. All right. Well, that was the important test coming in. We're at least passing that one. Is Karma going to be the lock-in at support for Gravity? Pairing on up with this Varus and the Aatrox in the top lane. That's been a selection that they have prioritized previously for earlier Q. Now going to be getting it for the first time here tonight in the face of a couple of bans. And now support counter pick going to be available for ISU. What do they want to put T-Tizzle on to be able to counter out this Varus Karma?
They have the Recon if they want to go towards it, and why not get crazy with the draft? I mean, you're already drafting a Fizz. Why not get a Blitzcrank in there? Blitzcrank Zaya is a very wacky bottom lane combination.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. I will say, I think that you're kind of drafting it for later because Blitzcrank Gangplank goes wild. I mean, talk about trying to dodge out on the barrels. What about when you're placed on top of one? That not a lot you can do about that. I also think Blitzcrank with Fizz is pretty strong. And so I like it. Like I see the appeal of it. Sejuani Blitzcrank. There's enough CC with this Blitzcrank that I actually think that you should be able to land more hooks than you might be able to normally because always the issue with the Blitzcrank is that you go for a hook, they flash away, they dash away, they are too far away. There's nothing you could do about it. But when they're CC'd, nothing they could do about it. And so with the Sejuani, with the Fizz, even with the Zaya, there's a world where this Blitzcrank is just consistently pulling Orianna and Varus in, maybe Karma in as well. And those three don't have many movement abilities, if any. They don't really have a lot of ways to get out. I mean, this could be kind of a run back of game one where T-Tizzle is just the flash getter and just consistently being annoying for the other team to go against.
Yeah, definitely some immobile targets to try to focus down on. Definitely some bad news targets to pull in as well here. The Jarvan getting in there, going to be able to pull off a huge Cataclysm. The Aatrox, we all know he loves to be in the middle of everybody. And anybody holding an Orianna ball as well, going to be on that list of potentially dangerous targets to rip into the middle of your team. So going to have to be a little bit of an intelligent Blitzcrank play out of T-Tizzle there. We'll see if they are going to be up to the task facing off against this Gravity squad, who were not able to do any counterpicking to this Blitzcrank. You know, the support saved for R5. This is their chance to put it all together, or really Exodia their comp together, and find themselves a way to beat the Gravity comp, seeing it in its full glory, and their selection is the Blitzcrank.
Yeah, that's such a double-edged sword. I'm really glad you made sure to make that a thing. If you hook somebody with all those different champions available, it could be really bad. And it's going to sting even more because maybe you pick Blitzcrank earlier and then they pick a Jarvan, an Aatrox, and you're like, well, they got me. No, you picked into this. So if you're T-Tizzle and you're hooking an Aatrox with World Ender Pop with Q3 available, you're getting flamed by your team because you wanted this pain is what I'm saying. Just like it seems like Bonfire likes the Bears to suck how much he reminds himself that they do. He wants that pain.
Whoa. I was actually going to flame you as well because I was like, oh yeah, the situation that we all know, Aatrox has ult popped in Q3. It happens so often.
Even not Q3. I mean, you just give him an opportunity to hit multiple people with a Q. It's gonna be pretty...
I was actually going to disagree with both of you. I think that you're fine hooking into an Aatrox as long as they don't have Q3 up. Q1 and 2 are almost always to get your Q3 up, and the damage just isn't that much as if you're not getting it on the hilt. So I don't know. I don't mind hooking an Aatrox. They have the damage to consistently CC them while they're close, and as long as you're not hooking the Aatrox into a Zaya, then you're probably okay. And I think that the biggest issue is, of course, the Jarvan, because instant Cataclysm, that's the problem. I mean, Jarvan really just always wants to be on top of you. I think Aatrox does kind of want to keep you at arm's distance. You know, they want to keep you like a Fiora might want to, or a Jax without Counter Strike might want to. Yeah, they don't want people on. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in this point.
I know we can't ask Caddy to do, like, it's not possible Caddy can do this, but imagine we just come out of game number 3 and the first thing you see is a black and white image of this video, and it's Bonfire going, I'm not scared of hooking Aatrox.
Yeah.
I can see it happening.
On the other side of things, imagine if it actually works out well. Just black and white video of you,
True.
Counterpoint.
True. All right. Well, as we start to get into the in-client draft here, I mean, I do want to highlight something here for ISU, which is how slippery their composition really is when you're facing off against some potentially really telegraphed engages, stuff like the Jarvan, stuff like the Shockwave, stuff like the Varus Chains of Corruption. It's going to be really tough to lock down your crucial carries. You got Oranges on the Gangplank, you got Playful Trickster on the Fizz, you got Featherstorm on the Xayah. There's not going to be a whole lot of vulnerable targets to try to focus stuff onto here, and it's really been the pick-focused compositions coming through from ISU all night. Now that we're on a little bit more of a picky sort of composition coming through from Gravity, it feels like they're going to have the toughest job of it now coming into this sort of composition from ISU.
But Gordo, Gravity couldn't get away, or ISU couldn't get away from playing playing de-escalation, right? They had the Blitzcrank. They had to have something, right? So I do think the Blitzcrank is. I hate to keep harping on it, but with the rest of the with the Sejuani, it works out pretty fine. I'm not going to focus too much on it. I'm just excited to watch a Fizz gameplay because he can be a menace in solo queue, but that's partly a reason because when you're playing solo queue, you're obviously not playing with a 5-stack that's all communicating very well. So you can kind of breed in the chaos, but Fizz, if you catch him not on his E jumping forward and you all stay grouped together, he is going to be, tonight's calamari dish.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also think with Fizz, and it goes back to my original point, there's just not really any assassins that are really picked right now. I guess Akali being the only one, and that's kind of mainly because of the Shroud. It's just so difficult to play an assassin character because, again, like you said, any form of communication, any sort of team play, and that assassin is getting popped. And so unless that assassin has a way to get out, like a LeBlanc or an Akali or something of that sort, really, really difficult to play. Fizz, no way to get out. Once you're in, and you better hope that you're either killing them or flashing out. And so we'll have to see how Pico is able to do. Now, the one positive for Pico, and this is a big one, is how much point-and-click CC do they really have to stop Pico from dashing around and getting, on top of them? It's a what is it, a Karma Root, and that's it. And so they better hope that they're landing their flag and drags and their ultimates from Varus, because if not, this Fizz, you can out damage him, sure, but if you're not CCing him, just dashing in and out of you, that might be where the strength comes from.
Yeah, no. I do just have to say, I promise you my vision on this Fizz-Orianna matchup is just completely skewed. Fizz, for me personally, this is my kryptonite champion. I cannot... I lose to this champ every time I go against it. I understand what I need to do, and I just can't convey the ability to my fingers. And when I'm playing Fizz, if I'm throwing out those Chum the Water, they're like Nidalee Spears to me, man. It's the thinnest little hitbox when it's piloted by yours truly. So I have no vision on exactly what this matchup is going to end up looking like, but it feels like it's really Fizz favored, right? Take that with a grain of salt, given who it's coming from, but it feels like it's a really solid matchup there. It's really tough to land any of your ball-focused combos onto the Fizz because they're always somewhat telegraphed. As you see the ball start to move towards you, you can always Playful Trickster out of the way and trust that you're going to be a solid distance away from any of the abilities coming out of the ball. You can close the gap really quickly. She doesn't have a lot of capability of getting away from you once you are on top of her. There's definitely some room to play with there as the Fizz, and I'm really curious to see how that's going to affect this lane matchup that has throughout the night really felt like it's been favoring Popcorn.
Yeah, that's the big thing is that Cyclones, ISU, they're giving respect over to Popcorn. They're saying, even in our win, you were a menace, so we're going to try as much as we can to just make your laning phase a living hell when you're picking your control mages. And Sejuani is also really good at being a nuisance early. Much like Jarvan, he just needs his flag to drag to. Sejuani just needs that stun and the angry boar running forward to make problems. So You're going to look at those runes now. I love the switch up here, Popcorn. Great recognition. We talked about Gravity's done a great job recognizing what the rune choices need to be. Going to Phase Rush instead of Airy is really huge, because if you can land a couple of hits, you can get away from this Fizz. You might dodge out on a Chum the Waters. You might not get a Sejuani stun that gets you killed.
Yeah, I will say the Electrocute on the Fizz, 100%. I think the only rune you can really take on the Fizz. I'm sure there's something else that someone will tell me, like, yeah, I run Aftershock Fizz and it's crazy. And for that, sure, live your life. But I don't know, man. It feels like Electrocute is pretty quintessential on Fizz in the bot lane. Double lethal tempo. Both of these bot laners wanting to get lots of auto attacks off, which means that it is going to be an on-hit Varus.
It's a lot more capable these days than the lethality one.
Definitely. There's crit Varus too. It's a thing you can do. I don't expect it here. I think we're still in like the static Shiv is good era of League of Legends, but I expect to see that coming on through. But not to be disregarded is the potential that we get some kind of, Essence Reverie, Cyrilda's Grudge-y, crit plus on hit spell damage kind of focused build. That's kind of there's options to go for that in the meta, but I agree it's very likely that it's going to be that on hit focused Varus. And there's that glacial augment you guys were hoping for coming in from the Blitzcrank.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense here. And the Airy for the comment, for the Karma. No comment for the Karma. Airy for the Karma. Both those bottom laners running inspiration trees, by the way, because they just want to get to those itemizations earlier. Interesting was to see the Visit is actually, pretty sure that was Time Warp Tonic. So he'll have a stopwatch, which, hey, if you get Blitz hooked, maybe you can go golden and pray your team saves you.
Yeah, I think that's kind of all you can do at a certain point when you get blitz hooked with somebody with not a lot of mobility, is just pray. And, stopwatch would be great as well. Hex Flash on the Blitzcrank is the thing that really sticks out to me. I think you normally go that on Blitzcrank, but sometimes people get caught off guard because they see a Blitzcrank flash and they think that all is good in the world. Gotta keep an eye out for the Hex Flash as well.
Absolutely, and it looks like the game is ready, so I'm going to say goodbye to you guys for one last time tonight, other than when the stream is over, and we are going to take ourselves into game number 3. Looking to see if Gravity or ISU Varsity are going to claim themselves victory in the first game 3 of the Risen Champions League, and are going to move themselves up closer to that playoff contention.
For one final time, good old Summoner's Rift. We have the side swapped, though, for the first time. Gravity on their blue side, trying to find their first win, a most critical win of the season. ISU Varsity looking to establish themselves as one of the better teams in the league and possibly the best collegiate squad.
Yeah, I think that is an uphill hill to climb, but definitely possible. Torchwick starting E. How often do you see that? Starting with the barrels, just trying to get some damage across. It is going to be that first strike, so hoping maybe cheese that way. But I think normally, don't you normally start with the pistol? I feel like it's almost always a Q start with Gangplank. I'll be perfectly honest, not a Gangplank main, so maybe I don't know I'm not up to date on my abilities to take first, but kind of an interesting start there.
I don't hate it. You definitely, the problem with starting Q is you can get into this cycle where you're spamming Q and lose all your mana. So go with the barrel start. You're hoping that you can zone Lear Q off of the wave before he can establish tempo. So, and it's interesting that you bring that up because we have 2 lanes that are supposed to go the opposite way, right? Gravity you're expecting is Lear Q. Ooh, good Q3 early on to get onto Tortwig. You're expecting Lear Q to win top, and you're expecting Pico to win mid. So expectations are one thing. And what does the game look like if either of those ideals go haywire?
I think that Pico could also lose mid, and that's the thing with Orianna is just very, very annoying to have to go into. Good dodge right there, though. And so I think there is a world where Pico does actually not win mid, or at least go even with Popcorn. And yeah, there we go. That's the trading that I'm talking about. Yeah, Fizz is annoying, but once you've done the full combo on Fizz, better hope that the Orianna doesn't have much left in their tank, because that chase down is going to be vital.
But this is also the advantage, Popcorn, early on, it is range versus melee. So if you can get some poke on that'll discourage Pico from jumping forward, You can survive for a bit, but yeah, that lane will become a lot different once Pico has chummed the waters, has all these abilities available. Just gonna try and pop that robot.
Something also interesting to see, I think sometimes in the top lane, if you go Gangplank, you want to go refillable because you're using your Qs a lot early to try to poke them out of lane. Choosing not to do that, just going for the sword for the damage. So, look, I completely trust what Tortwig is doing is a much better Gangplank than me. I'm surprised. I haven't played Gangplank in a while.
Ooh, there's the first mishook for T-Tizzle. Takes a good amount of damage for it. XRM0 was pathing bottom lane, so you gotta think if that hook lands, it's at least a multitude of summoners coming out. Another good trade. Given back from Popcorn here, using the ball defensively at shield can save a decent amount of the poke, and that's all the corrupting potions down from Pico.
Yeah, and the wave's just in a horrendous spot right now from Pico as well. Has to hope that he can make sure that it bounces back to him because right now, down about 10 CS, and it is going to bounce back, and so Pico will be saved in that regard. But yeah, kind of a brutal mid lane, and this is what I was talking about. It does feel like early on, this Orianna can do okay into the Fizz.
And just like game number 1, some invade shenanigans going along towards the bot side. And Tarim isn't really done going for it. He's really trying to dissuade Zero. There's the flag and drag. Smite secure for the blue. T-Tizzle eats a mantra-empowered Q. Popcorn's up here too with that lane pressure he got. And the blue does come across, but you can see Gravity are trying to be on the offensive early.
Yeah, they have a pretty good early comp. They're just continuously shoving in so many waves. It's difficult for Zero to get anything done. Some good damage from Rotelos right there. As I like that we keep going back to the top lane to see how things are going. How is this Aatrox Gangplank matchup proceeding? We're going to get our first back from this Fizz. Tortwig had just recently backed, and so we'll see what kind of items that they can buy. But right now, you cannot separate these two teams. There is about 100 gold between them. Both teams playing like they understand that this is a game 3 and one mistake could mean it all.
Tortwig trying to just set up a monster wave to get another free back in, I would assume, here, as he is gonna, sit on his little perch. Actually does pull off of it just yet. No, if Tarim had canceled that back, might have had a shot at a jump onto to try to set Tortwig back, but he'll be safe.
You also got to keep an eye on where Zero is as well. This Sejuani was not far away, and so unless you kill that Gangplank immediately, you're going to have a Sejuani on top of your head pretty soon. So maybe for the best, not being able to, or finishing that back as more damage. Lear Q taking some right there. Pico missing the damage. And again, we move. Both of these teams just focusing on trading. I believe Tarim was spotted out right there. So they know that the Jarvan is top.
But man, what a gameplay coming out here from Tortwig. I mean, it feels like Rovex's Pike almost at this point. If you let it through, he doesn't really lose a lane. And Lyricue is really on the back foot here. Massive CS difference. And the only reason it's close is because Popcorn's doing the same mid side. Junglers, though, fighting it out here. Tarim not winning that trade whatsoever. Tortwig's the first one to roam over. But Gravity do have Ajax here. They have the 4v5, and Tortwig might get pulled into his own death. Right over. First blood comes across. Chum the waters. Pico jumping on top of Tarim will find the trade. Zero very low. Trying to make sure Lyricue can't get a trade. World Ender still going. Popcorn is here. Jumping out is Pico using that playful trickster to get over the wall. Any gap closing coming across. Couple of autos from Popcorn just waiting on those cooldowns. Ajax gets a speed up. Gets the flash mantra. Q and Lyricue has two big early kills for Gravity.
Yeah, a disaster right there because Tortwig was building out the laning phase and so well. Was doing so good right there, and then all it takes is one World Ender, Q1, Q2, Q3, and boom. No longer alive. That is a lot of damage onto Rotelos, but that's a good Gangplank ultimate. It has to be careful.
Lethal tempo, Vizen can't finish the kill. T-Tizzle showing up, but Tarim also here. Hook will land, and Montelis gets the kill before Cavalry arrives. Both junglers all over the map right now. Flag and drive from Tarim. Montelis is healing up. There's the Conqueror swinging of that staff, trying to find the trade. Ajax will get one, but his jungler falls in the way. There's the pull. T-Tizzle wanted that Blitzcrank for a reason and is showing right now.
Hotels, 2 kills out of that, and that is a massive fight to win. You talk about the Blitzcrank. who you do and who you don't want to pull in. And Tizzle hurt us because pulling in all the high priority members right there. Motel's a great extended trade with the Varus, had to back up, but as soon as Tizzle arrived, getting the hook, able to kill the Varus, and then more to be found as well. And so this gold continues to go back and forth. Pico takes some damage, but yeah, feels pretty comfortable to be able to walk away. Might have to back though, and without teleport, Popcorn might have a chance to get something done.
Popcorn did use Shockwave there. Now the back canceled as Pico's trying to come across to save Zero. Ix has just been all over the map as well. And once again, Tarum at the right place at the right time makes sure Gravity is back ahead.
Yeah, AX constantly on the map, constantly getting stuff done. It really feels like AX has had a great series, kind of under the radar, but good Nautilus. And a very, very good Karma so far. And that's what you need to do on Karma as well, right? An early game champion because you get your ult before anybody else in the game. And so you want to make use of that. We're seeing that right now.
Tizzle making sure he's still a presence. Vizen has to respect the Blitzcrank and will back off the wave. Did have Flash available, all summoners available. Potentially not going to die there. Pico still very down in the CS department. The reason why this game is close is the CS gap's not really the kills. Zero's looking for more of them. Flash knock up into the pole. Ajax rooted. There's a kill for Motelis. Lethal Temple proc. Vizen, though, once again, leaves a couple of scraps of dinner on his plate. But Motelis might be the next feast. The knock up, the feather pull back will get it. It's a rampage for the Cyclones AD carry. But Popcorn is here. Can he get any of these low health members? He's hooked. He flashes back over the wall. Only able to find one. Tarum now. Next up to bat. Everybody just wants to fight out in this game number 3. He has the Cataclysm and he gets close enough. That's a huge shutdown to find for Gravity.
Massive shutdown, but as a whole, they lose out on that fight. The numbers, Popcorn trying to go hero mode right there, take on the 1v4, does end up getting one, but falls for it. And this is a massive, massive Xayah right now, 4-1. You've got a 2-1 Pico on the Fizz. Dangerous, dangerous members are fed on this ISU squad, but nothing to scoff at for Gravity either. 2-0, Aatrox, as this Dragon's going down.
Ooh, there's the Cannon Barrage. No, it sets up the steal for Zero. Tarum now gets Glacial Prisoned in, able to flash the hook, but he gets the nothing for that Drake take.
Yeah, has to use the flash as well. Disaster. Even when the Gangplank isn't in the fight, it's still there. With the global ultimate, able to ensure the team feels safe enough to go for the steal, and then Zero just quicker on the button on the 50. Beautifully played. ISU continue to extend their lead.
And that lead is really because Tortwig, look at the CS difference he's amassed up here, Bonfire. It is going to be right around 40.
Yeah, I mean, this is massive, right, for the Gangplank. You talk about pocket picks and, you know, picks that people are good on. Tortwig is synonymous with the Gangplank champion. And he's showing it right now. Even with that little misplay earlier on, giving over first blood. Still huge in the CS department. Already has that Essence Reaver. Gonna do a ton of damage. Meanwhile, Learq just doing what they can to stay alive. Had to start with the boots. Trying to make sure that the Gangplank can't kill him.
There's the Chains of Corruption, but he can't get away from Motelis' damage. Topside, another trade coming across as Tortwig is finally slain. But man, Motelis is now 5-1 on this Xayah.
Yeah, that damage is just unfair. Tizzle finds the hook and it's easy peasy from there. AX is here, but Pico moment, Fizz moment, able to hop themselves away. What a little playful trickster this guy is. Zero's gonna make sure that this top wave doesn't give too much gold over to the top lane and the jungle. This entire time, Hotels just taking everything.
Solo plate gold, solo CS, and experience coming across right now. Has himself a decent commanding CS lead. This is going to be a really interesting mid game because there are strengths for both of these teams in different areas.
Yeah, no, 100% there are. There's going to be good things, there's going to be bad things. I think Zero being 0-4 is never ideal, but you'd rather, if anyone were to be 0-4, I think you'd rather it be the tank. On the other side of things, 0 and 3 on the AD carry. Vision not having a fun one, having a difficult game right now. They just got back to lane, Slayer. They had just gotten back to lane, immediately have to back, and that's gonna be the first hurt in the bot side.
A lot of big standing gold being knocked down early for the Cyclones. And Gordo talked about how they have that collegiate buff in our eyes when it comes to tier listing. They play better moving around as a team. You're seeing it here as T-Tizzle gets another hook. Flag and drag away from Terran, but he can't get away from the Bird Queen herself. Motelis is now 6-1.
Yeah, this is a massive Xayah, and that's concerning, right? Because you just got work done in the bot side. Suddenly, Motelis is in the mid lane getting work done. That's one turret. Oh, hold on. Motelis still has ult, though.
There's a big command shockwave flash forward. They're going to try and get the root, but there is the Feather Storm. Popcorn, though, gets him. That's a big shutdown. T-Tizzle has to flash himself out of danger. Gravity won't go quietly in the night tonight.
That is a crucial misplay right there from Motelis. Waiting too long to use the ultimate. I believe you become untargetable because I don't know. I was surprised that they got rooted out right there from the Karma root, but I guess either waited too long or you don't actually become untargetable. Tortwick takes some damage but deals some out as well, but it's a shutdown to give over. And that's more gold in the pocket of Popcorn, who, again, I hate repeating myself, but you gotta think is one of the best mid laners in the league right now.
We've got a lot of high power mid lane talent, but Popcorn, through what we've seen, performing exceptionally. And I will mention that the Karma, Ix really well played that because got the root before the Feather Storm and held onto it through the Feather Storm. So the tether stays. You don't need to target her anymore, and the root would come across because of that.
Okay. My understanding of Karma root, I guess, is not where I thought it was. As, Popcorn.
Ooh, Popcorn, very immobile champion, flashing over the wall. Zero follows. The stuns are lining up. Pico doesn't even need to chum the waters until he's got himself a kill. But will it cost ISU? Because Tarum has a ton of damage on this J4. Cataclysm's 3 in. What a play from Tarum and the rest of the squad coming to back them up. But Pico is able to find a fleeting kill. Motelis is way too strong to deal with as well. And as World Ender expires for Learq, Gravity got to think twice about pursuing this any further. And IX is going to force them back.
Yeah, AX is a good find to start off, but they just don't have the damage to kill T-Tizzle immediately. They finally do. Here comes another teleport. They want to go in on Motelis. Good flash right there. Zero should be able to get themselves out. This entire time, by the way, look top side. I mean, this Gangplank is absolutely destroying their base.
Yeah, he's eyeing a tier 2, and Gangplank can take turns very quickly, especially how heightened Tortwig has been with that farm. He's got 60 CS lead. You have to bring Tarum over to stop him, but he's already done so much damage. Vision now going to be the target, but T-Tizzle might be rooted up, stunned up, and killed up by Popcorn. There's the cannon barrage, and Pico's gotten onto the back line. Pico's found the priority targets. The Fizz pick is finally showing up in a big moment for game number 3, and now the Cyclones confidently ahead.
Yeah, there's no calamari on the menu tonight. We are 86th, because right now, looking like this Fizz is doing the one who's cutting them up. Beautiful, beautiful work from Pico right there, but you got to give credit over to so many members because Pico doesn't find that little flank if it isn't for the rest of the team soaking the damage, if it isn't for Motelis pushing out so much damage behind the front line. And it just set up Pico beautifully, and there is nothing that Gravity can do in this game. Dangerously close to snowballing out of control. 6-1 on the Fizz, 6-2 on the Xayah. This Gangplank, no slouch either, 180 CS. It is not going to get any easier.
Yeah, this is a classic example of getting the kills on the targets you need them to be, right? I mean, there is one kill between your tank support Sejuani jungle and your Blitzcrank. The rest of those 14 kills all on those priority members. And now Pico maybe thinking he can do the waltz with Popcorn now. His lane was real tough, but he's got his dancing shoes with him with all that gold.
Yeah, he's ready to tango, and why not, right? When you are this strong at this point, with the Ludens, with the 10 Magi stacks, or Darksteel stacks, pardon, it's not difficult at all. Now, the thing is, Pico can't die. and lose all of those stacks, and so has to be careful because there are 3 members spot. But when it comes to a 1v1, I don't think there's a single champion on this Gravity squad that I favor over Pico.
Popcorn doesn't have the stasis to save him from a Chum the Waters or any of that burst damage just yet. He is still building towards what looks like a Saras, which will potentially save him, but not in the same way as Zanya's would. So now has to be careful, and you're seeing why the Tarim is roaming over to cover. Want to make sure that it's at least a shutdown trade if Popcorn is advanced on. But what a game number 3 from the Cyclones. There were points where Gravity looked like this was all their series.
Yeah, it's a good bounce back, and that's what you need to see out of good teams. You know, great teams always win, but great teams also are able to bounce back when things don't go right. Right now, ISU is showing that resilience, and they're showing that they're not a flash in the pan, that they deserve to be 2-1 and be in the upper echelon of teams. They still have to close this one out because great teams also don't get come back on that often, and they are in danger of that if things get too out of hand. They have themselves a 6,000 gold lead, and they have a good scaling squad. But they need more dragons. They need a Baron. Still a lot they need to do.
God, but gotta give more props to Tortwig. Do you know how hard it is to get a bounty when you're 1 and 2 in a
It's
game?
true.
Like, that's just God.
Yeah, almost actually going for the Flame Horizon. 208
Yeah?
CS, only 30 CS away from doing it. This is a massive, massive gangplank. Has the Essence Reaver. Has the Boots of Swiftness, interestingly enough, and has the Navorus.
Oh, look at that little interaction. The hook lands, but he hits the blast cone, and the blast cone says no to the hook. It's kind of like the same interaction you get when Ezreal Arcane shifts after getting the hook. He's a couple frames where the hook will not land; it'll just stick to the champion.
Yeah, same with the Tristana jump. I think people kind of don't expect, but Tristana can do the same thing. And it's mid tower in the eyes of this squad. Now, here's the thing, Tortwig. Do not give up this shutdown. Oh, good dodge.
Here comes the min-maxing. Cannon Barrage drops over, but Lyrq is too powerful to deal with in World Ender form. You go for that play, Gravity. Well, how much will you pay for it? T-Tizzle says a lot. Popcorn jumped on, but it's the 2 tanks. They don't have any damage. Montelis and Pico couldn't get onto Popcorn, so the hook is great, but the follow-up isn't.
Yeah, not enough follow-up, but they still get the flash from Popcorn, so not going to have that in the future. And this is an immobile Orianna. 26 seconds on the next dragon. Oh, almost landing that hook. As a Blitzcrank main, or at least a former Blitzcrank main, T-Tizzle has my seal of approval. Been a very, very good Blitzcrank game so far from him.
Tarim, look at all the work he has to do just to get into his own jungle, right? He has to worry about all these hooks, look out for all these pink wards. ISU, Iowa State University Varsity squad, they really want this next Drake, but after losing that gameplay, losing that side lane pressure, they're going to have to give up some of these wards or give up deaths, potentially. Zero is able to slip out there, mostly thanks to Motelis' threatening presence. You can tell both these teams really want this dragon.
Yeah, it's an important dragon, and we might actually have our first 5v5 of the game, which is exciting to see, although, as I say that, Gravity says we want nothing to do with it, and they're actually turning towards Baron, so this is interesting. Tortwig might be able to see this out. Tortwig might actually be in danger. Oh boy.
No flash, no way out of the Cataclysm, his own little prison. And the Gangplank Master falls once more. Gravity trade the Drake for that kill, and now they're going to move right towards this Baron.
Oh boy, 4v5. This could be dangerous, though. They lose this, they could lose a lot more, and they see the writing on the wall.
Oh, they hooked in the Aatrox. Lyrq immediately have to flash out. Tarim trying to play body blocker, but Pico gets him with Chum the Water. The Fizz play is what was needed for the Cyclones. Pico showing up huge, but he does lose his AD carry. Popcorn low will finally fall. Pico, playful trickster forward. This is why you pick Fizz. This is why you fear the Cyclones. Legendary Pico.
Oh my goodness gracious. 9-1. This Fizz is absolutely decimating anybody on Gravity's squad, and sometimes you have that pocket pick, and it is just not the move, but Pico has been practicing this pick. Is a Fizz, I would imagine, one trick or main in their own time, because they are making this champion sing.
I'd even be able to find more here. Tarim I don't think he knows that Pico's on the other side of that wall, but Pico's going to let him actually get away with that back. Man, what a Fizz to worry about. Has that Zhonya's second item too, so has a bit more comfortability if he decides to jump forward into a big clump of enemies. Has Flash available. I don't know how you knock down this Fizz.
And this is important, right? And this is a shout out to all of my solo queue mid laners and top laners and anybody who gets fed. Build defensively. When you're fed, you will have the damage no matter what. There is no reason to build offensively. As Motelis, hold on.
Motelis doesn't have any defense left. He does get a trade. You go 80 carry for 80 carry, but Gravity liked their chances. That's a big chunk of AD damage down here, and Tortwig not teleporting in just yet. Could play a big factor. It doesn't have the cannon barrage, does finally drop it, but they grab a priority target. It's Vincent. The command shockwave will not save him. That's a huge play from T-Tizzle. It might just save the Cyclones. A Baron. Lyricue falls. Tortwig finds it. It's the Cyclones once more in a big-time fight.
ISU get the fight of dreams right there. They lose 2, but they get the high priority members, and it starts again with the T-Tizzle hook. Guy cannot miss right now on this Blitzcrank, able to get Vision, and the rest of them just fall like dominoes. Even with the Aatrox and the Jarvan doing everything they can in that fight, it doesn't matter. The Baron over to the Golden Red. In this game, it's looking really, really difficult. Slayer, it is a 12,000 gold difference. Gravity, for all they were able to do in game 2, for all they were able to do in the beginning of this game, their heads hanging low, their aspirations even lower.
This is a tough reality check, and gotta give hats off to Pika. I mean, he had a really good game 1. Popcorn really just canceled him out in game number 2. Gotta give some mental fortitude points over to this guy for being able to respawn, not only just performing well in game number 3, but on a pick you rarely see at this level of competitive play.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you see a fed mid laner, they have, somebody making the work happen for them. But it really does feel like Pico is creating their own opportunities, a self-made entrepreneur. It's fantastic to see as Aaron takes a little bit of damage. Has to be careful. Cataclysm. I think Tortwig is just dead.
Yeah, Tortwig really just min-maxing, but my God, he nearly finds Popcorn. That's the power of a 3-item, or my God, 4-item gangplank at 25 minutes, but just such a big positioning error. And Gravity, maybe get a bit of hope with that pick.
Yeah, the issue is how many members do you need to kill one gangplank? That's 1. That's 2 towers down. I think this top inhibitor turret gonna fall as well. So 3 towers for 1. It's great that they were able to find the gangplank. Don't get me wrong, but they had to give a lot over because of it.
Yeah, really. I thought they would have a window to try a 5v4 because at this point you can't just sit back and let your base crumble. You have to fight it out, but they don't bite just yet. Tortwig up in 4. Doesn't have teleport. This Ocean Soul Drake will be spawning, and with Tortwig down and the resets from the Cyclones, they will likely be able to set up shop first here. And of course, in desperation, you got to go to the cheese, the Death Brush.
Oh no.
But Zero paths correctly for it. No, just when you think he's going to go in, he doesn't.
Tizzle has to run away. Good path and good recognition of what they needed to go for, and
Pico
boy, Pico
comes the waters. It's such a massive spot, and he decimates them
goodness.
all. Lyricue also gets hooked in, and it's the quickest ace of the Champions League season, and it's a win, series win for ISU Varsity.
Absolute destruction. They're going to end before 30 minutes. ISU proving that game 2 was nothing but a fluke. This is a team that other teams have to worry about. They are not going to go easy into that Dark Knight. And Pico is going to play the craziest champs. They're doing all the sort of celebrations, and it is actually going to be a forfeit. Gravity sees the writing on the wall.
Wow. That is an abrupt end to what has been a very entertaining series. We bring Gordo back in. We can't ever disrespect the Fizz again, can we?
No, absolutely not. Not up against this team. You can't disrespect the Gangplank either. 100% win rate on that pick now. Wasn't exactly the flashiest performance there. Had plenty else to look at between that Fizz and that Zaya, but you gotta give it over to him. This pick has been huge for them, and they've been able to make a lot happen with it. And now really showing they got some depth on this ISU varsity team, really asking a lot out of their players, busting out some champions that we hadn't gotten to see from them yet in every game this series, and really constantly able to perform here. Really good stuff from that team.
Yeah, it means so much more that you can go towards these comfort picks. You have players that have pocket picks to pull out because, when playoffs roll around, you're going to have to go towards those picks in big games, right? You can't just, no team we've ever seen just gets away with pure meta picks. You got to have a little bit of trickery. And we've seen today that ISU Varsity do.
Yeah, they have the trickster actually in the flesh, in the gills, I suppose. It's a beautiful play right there, and it just comes down to ISU. We've talked about this team, and we've said they're a great team. They have that college buff. They have the potential to take this season under their belts, but we need to see more. One loss isn't going to do it. We need to see 2 wins. We need to see more out of this team, and I think today they showed us that they can really get down to tango. It was not a quick 2-0 like I think everybody expected, but they showed resilience. They showed that they could do it even when they had fallen pretty dominantly in game two, and they showed that they can do it on some strange picks as well.
Absolutely here. So now going to be rising up to 2-1 in the season. And those wins are going to matter, each and every one. Definitely going to be a huge deal here when we talk about just having 3 teams per group making it into that next stage of competition. You really got to get each and every win in this competitive Group A, because you got CCG Futures in here, you got Gentle Hearts Gaming in here, you got Kosa Gamer Squad in here, who have already beaten you once. It's going to be really difficult to try to make it out of a group that's this competitive. So making sure to solidify these wins up against a squad like Gravity is just going to be absolutely crucial for ISU Varsity if they have aspirations to make it to the postseason here. So it looks like we got our first of some replays coming on through here. Look at how Motelis ended up getting fed. Walk us through this one, Bonfire.
Yeah, I think it starts off well, for both teams. They're both looking, and I think they both see something that they like, because why else would you go for this? Vizen thinks that they have the fight onto Motalis. Motalis thinks they have the fight onto Vizen. And Motalis does get dropped low, but the entire time it was actually just buying time. And again, I spoke so highly of T Tizzle. That's exactly why. Gets the important hook right there. Now it looks good again there for the other, or for Gravity. They look like they might have 0 down. They end up killing him. But again, this entire time was just allowing Motelis to come back into the fight. Another great hook. And this is kind of what started it, right? Obviously, it was the Fizz that was the huge threat, but this Zaya was nothing to be slept on. And while they weren't the benefactor of the kills later in the game, it's the same issue as game two. When you have a fed AD carry and a fed mid laner, who the hell do you focus out?
I got to give some roses over to T Tizzle. Didn't hook any Aatrox. Is looking to do a ton of damage in a fight. Had a lot of big priority hooks, and I'm not going to explain too many more of them, Gordo, because I have a sneaking suspicion we'll see some of them with the rest of these replays.
Yeah, definitely. Looks like we got our second one up here. You can walk us through it, Slayer. We got a fight win for ISU that really shows how they start to take over this game when it's still pretty close.
Yep, and it starts off, how else? T-Tizzle hooking a pretty big priority target, and this sneaky chum the waters. Lyric, you didn't realize it was on him until he falls, and we get to see really the full-fledged power of Pico. It takes a really high-level player to be in the right spot constantly, and in these fights, Pico was waiting, buying his time, letting the rest of his squad create those hooks. Everyone's focused on T-Tizzle hooking opponents. They're counting Pico out, and he's able to knock down Vizen, find that third kill to be on a killing spree that he'd eventually go legendary. That's how big he was in this one.
Yeah, it was Pico, it was the feather pullback. They just were consistently being brought into the ISU domain. And that kind of is how that game went as a whole. If you didn't watch it, it was basically just Gravity constantly walking into ISU traps, into ISU setups, and it provided to be deadly for this game.
Yeah, for sure here. And final nail in the coffin driven in this last fight here as we go into our final replay of the night. And this one in a lot more dominant of a fashion. Fight breaking out over the Ocean Drake once again. Learq pops the ultimate. They're ready to get started. But again, it's Pico into the back line, just one-shotting the carries, and the fight's already over there. We talked about maybe some games earlier in this series, not tunneling exclusively on the carries, maybe playing the fights front to back a little bit more, making sure some of those engages aren't as available as they might have been otherwise. But if you just one-shot the mid and the AD carry right off the bat on your Fizz, that's a pretty good recipe to win as well when you can make it happen.
Yeah, and kind of just singing the praise of Pico with those secondary picks. Don't let Torchwick pick Gangplank. This is a series that I think should be studied by a lot of the teams in the Champions League if they want to figure out how to beat ISU Varsity.
Yeah, and for Gravity, I don't think that you can be all sad about this one. I do think there are positives to take away. You've got what looked to be a superstar mid laner who didn't really find it near the end of that third game, but was consistently getting leads, consistently pushing so much damage. And I think that you've got a good supporting cast around them. I think 0 and 3, honestly, doesn't really tell the whole tale of this Gravity team. And I do think that if there was any 0 and 3 team to make a run, it might be this team. But unfortunately, close only matters in horseshoes and hand grenades, and ISU was the one holding the hand grenade this game.
It's gonna be real fun, Gordo. Next week, we're gonna watch I believe, a collegiate battle. University of British Columbia will likely be taking on ISU again. Gotta love when the colleges go head to head, especially when it's USA versus Canada.
Good stuff, good stuff. Yeah, we are going to run it back with the ISU stream next week. So I see there's some ISU fans in Twitch chat. I'm sure they'll be happy to come and hang out with us for another ISU matchup next week. And it's really going to be a big focus on ISU and their journey to try to make playoffs here. They already dropped to CCG Futures. They were able to take down the Kosa Gamers squad. Those are some of the big other faces we're going to see there. They're going to need to keep that win streak up, as we know it's going to be a huge challenge for them going up against Gentle Hearts Gaming in week number 5.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to posture for some of that seeding, trying to guarantee yourself a spot in that postseason, each and every game is going to make a big difference. UBC going to be the opponent they face off against next week. Gravity, they're going to have a tough run of it now to finish off the season. They got to go up against Gentle Hearts Gaming, followed by CCG Futures. So this would have to be a hell of a miraculous run for Gravity to turn around at this point.
Yeah, wow. Got to go up against Quacker and Gentle Hearts, and then also Gentle Hearts Gaming. So
maybe my prediction of the comeback kids is misplaced.
Yeah, Bonfire may have to amend some of that a little bit there. Gonna be a rough run of them here, but I mean, nothing left to lose up against some of the big boys in the league. Let's see how they are going to be able to put things together coming into the end of their season. There's still plenty of Risen Champions League left to play, but no more of it left to play tonight. We are going to be back next Sunday with more Risen Champions League games. I think Slayer, at the very least, is going to be back tomorrow with the Risen Divine League, if I'm not mistaken. I know Bonfire and I won't be there.
I think, wait, no, I thought it other way around. Yeah, I think Bonfire is going to be.
Maybe Bonfire will be there then. I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I'll check our calendar later. I won't be here, so it's not my responsibility.
Right.
Somebody will be here, though, for the Risen Divine League. Might be some other folks as well. We're going to be back throughout the week with more Risen Leagues. Until next week, until tomorrow, until whenever you join us again. That's going to do it for our broadcast. From myself, from Slayer and Bonfire here, and from Caddy on production. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.
And they say I have a grim sense of humor.